Part 43. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 431. After driving fast, with the help of security personnel, the three of them got into the car and officially left Ueno Park. Runa, are you free recently? As the car drove out for a while, Ninomiya Chizuru sat in the back seat and suddenly asked. What's the matter? Wait until I finish driving. I need to concentrate on driving and look at the rearview mirror to see if anyone is following me. Igarashi Runa heard this and immediately stopped her. Her eyes, while looking forward, were also staring at the rearview mirror at all times. Perhaps due to their background, the artists of Zero Hour Agency, those reporters from major TV stations and mainstream media, would not follow them and cause trouble for them. But Zero Hour had just held a grand performance tonight, and its reputation and attention were at their peak. Professionals would not chase after them, but they still had to be on the safe side, because there were still Sasang fans in this world who violated the privacy and personal safety of idols, as well as many internet celebrities and YouTubers who would do anything to attract attention. Okay. Because she was busy, Ninomiya Chizuru suddenly felt uncomfortable disturbing her. Kurosawa, I got you a set of clothes and put them at your feet. You change your clothes in the car. I'll find a deserted street to drop you off later. After driving for a while, Igarashi Runa gave instructions again. Do you want to change clothes in the car? Kurosawa Hikaru was stunned when he heard this. He looked down and found that there was really a big bag at his feet. If you feel inconvenient, let's go back to the office first. Igarashi Runa felt that he was not used to this, so he didn't make things difficult for him. Kurosawa Hikaru hesitated for a while when he heard this. Kurosawa wants to change clothes. Ninomiya Chizuru came to her senses when she heard this. Yes, this is a strategy to protect privacy, which can minimize the exposure of his identity. He changes his clothes first, and then I drive him around the city for a few laps and find an opportunity to drop him off. Igarashi Runa nodded slightly and explained. This is her basic process, that is, after a public performance, in order to avoid being followed, the artist is asked to disguise himself in the car and find an opportunity to blend into the crowd. Last time, this process was not used because Zero Hour became popular too quickly, and she left the Phantom Star Agency alone, without her left arm and right arm, and had few resources at hand. She was blocked by reporters before she could react. She still doesn't know how Kurosawa sneaked out of the Tokyo Bunkakaikan quietly when reporters blocked all the entrances and exits. It seems that he relied on a strange talent called parkour. Since it is to protect privacy and avoid exposure, there is no way. Ninomiya Chizuru couldn't help but agree when she heard this, and looked at Kurosawa Hikari beside her. Then I'll change in the car. Kurosawa Hikari saw that she seemed to be looking forward to it, and after thinking about it, he decided to follow Igarashi Runa's arrangement. If he had to go to the agency just to let him change a set of clothes so that he could get off the car on the side of the road and blend into the crowd, it would be unnecessary. Although he has been an artist for a short time, he has never eaten pork. Hasn't he seen pigs run? Such a move is for the safety and privacy of artists. Disguising in the car and changing the appearance can greatly avoid the risk of being followed. The most important thing is that he has a feeling that this is an assist from Miss Runa. After thinking about it, Kurosawa Hikaru bent down and picked up the bag, looking for clothes. Don't worry, I won't look at you. Because of his compromise, Ninomiya Chizuru said immediately. After saying that, she made up her mind and turned her head away. It's okay for you to look, we are a couple. Kurosawa Hikaru found it a little funny to find that she wanted to look, but forced herself to turn her head away. This is the role of assists. If there was no assist from Miss Runa, they would probably never have such an unexpected development in their lives. Hearing this, Ninomiya Chizuru, who had finally hardened her heart, shook her neck and tilted a little bit. Since he said it's okay, then it should be okay for me to take a look, right? Ninomiya Chizuru was very shaken, but her curiosity soon overwhelmed her. Because changing clothes means taking off clothes. So far, Kurosawa Hikaru has always been well dressed in front of her, very gentlemanly, clean and tidy. In other words, Kurosawa's figure is mysterious and unknown to her, and humans are a kind of curious creatures. Immediately, her head turned little by little. As soon as she turned her head, she saw Kurosawa Hikaru pulling his tie with his hands to loosen the neck restraint. This undressing action is not standard at all, but it is very handsome. Afterwards, Kurosawa Hikaru did not hesitate and took off his tuxedo directly. Under the tuxedo, the upper body is a short-sleeved white shirt. This is due to the consideration of climate and season. Now it is summer, and the tuxedo is hot to wear, so it is better to have a cooler lining. Because he was a man, Kurosawa Hikaru didn't hesitate to unbutton his shirt from top to bottom, one by one. Feeling his movements of unbuttoning, Ninomiya Chizuru's heartbeat quickened with each button, and she felt like a deer beating wildly. Even though the lights in the back seat were dim, as the buttons were unbuttoned, Kurosawa Hikaru's strong chest muscles and figure could not be hidden, scattered among the shirts. He's in great shape too. Ninomiya Chizuru couldn't help but secretly thought to herself when she saw his beautiful physique when he was wearing clothes to look slimmer and taking off his clothes to show off his flesh. Kurosawa's figure is not the almost exaggerated muscles of a bodybuilder. The lines look natural and have a just right feeling. In fact, she had seen Kurosawa Hikaru taking off half of his sleeves during the archery competition. But even though she was sitting in the first row of the auditorium at that time, the position where the contestants were standing was in the center of the stage, at least dozens of meters away. After all, it was too far away. It was completely different from the feeling of being close to her this time. At this moment, Kurosawa Hikaru unbuttoned all the buttons and took off his shirt. Wow! Seeing that he had completely taken off his shirt, Ninomiya Chizuru looked at his strong and shapely chest muscles, her eyes were attracted, and she was no longer satisfied with her peripheral vision, and tilted her head a little more. Immediately afterwards, Kurosawa Hikaru took out a loose t-shirt from the bag and put it on. Seeing that his figure was once again covered up by clothes, Ninomiya Chizuru's mood was like riding a roller coaster, with ups and downs. After finishing this matter, Kurosawa Hikaru bent down and began to take off his shoes. "Would you like to change your pants?" Seeing this action, Ninomiya Chizuru's heartstrings were lifted again. Facing her gaze, Kurosawa Hikaru was also a little shy. Although he is a man, he is not afraid of being seen even if he is changing clothes. After all, Ms. Runa brought him a set of clothes, so he will not even have to change his underwear. But when he changes clothes in front of Kins and faces her unbearable curious gaze, even if he is very thick-skinned, he will still feel embarrassed and unable to remain indifferent. Having said that, you should change it anyway. After all, it is to disguise yourself and conceal your identity. Using this reason, Kurosawa Hikaru suppressed the shame in his heart and began to untie his belt. The belt is the soul of a suit. If a person wears a white shirt and trousers, will it look like a salesperson and give people a very vulgar feeling? The key lies in the choice of belt. Seeing this scene, Ninomiya Chizuru couldn't help holding his breath, for fear that making a sound would affect him. As he untied his belt, Kurosawa Hikaru found that Chizuru had turned his head at some point, with an extremely intense gaze. He immediately regretted why he said it didn't matter if he looked at her. From this point of view, Ms. Runa's assists are not all for him, she may also be for Chizuru. After all, their relationship is better. However, it was useless to regret it now. He could only take off his pants neatly and quickly picked up a pair of loose sweatpants in the bag and put them on. However, even if he moved quickly, he could not escape the almost intense gaze of Ninomiya Chizuru. Ahem, changed. After putting on his trousers, Kurosawa pulled the rope on the trousers, controlled the slack, and tied a knot. When he found that she was still staring at him, he coughed lightly. Call. Seeing this scene, Ninomiya Chizuru finally let out a sigh of relief. This was so exciting, even more exciting than her previous visits to haunted houses and roller coasters. You haven't put on your shoes yet. Immediately afterwards, Ninomiya Chizuru came back to her senses and realized that her performance seemed to be too lewd. After realizing it, she felt embarrassed and fiddled with her hair before reminding her. Kurosawa Hikaru saw her trying to calm down, smiled softly, picked up the shoebox in the bag and opened it. Isn't the space very small? This car is my personal car after all, not a nanny car, so it's not that convenient. Igarashi Runa, who watched a good show through the rearview mirror, did not forget to express concern. It's not bad, there's a lot of space in the back seat. Kurosawa Hikaru shook his head. Maybe this is a sedan, but Chizuru's figure is so good that if he sits next to him, it won't affect him at all. What do you think, Chizuru? Igarashi Runa asked again. I also think there's a lot of space. Ninomiya Chizuru affirmed without even thinking about it. That's good, by the way, Chizuru, you need to change clothes too. Igarashi Runa nodded in relief, and her style suddenly changed. Should I change too? Ninomiya Chizuru was stunned when he heard this, and was immediately shocked. This feeling is like watching a good play and being told that you will be performing later. Hearing this, Kurosawa Hikaru was also shocked. He didn't expect this to happen. Then, he subconsciously looked at Chizuru beside him. Ninomiya Chizuru, who is more than 1.7 meters tall, has long hands and legs. Even in the back seat without lights, her jade arms are white and delicate. With that graceful and curvy figure, the blue and white dress couldn't hide that charm at all. Because her clothes are excellent and she is a beautiful woman, she looks good no matter what she wears. Chizuru always looks cool and elegant, delicate, noble, intellectual, and reveals the sexiness of abstinence. But Kurosawa Hikaru hasn't had time to understand what she will look like when she takes off her clothes. You are much more recognizable than him. Your appearance tonight has made you more famous. Now you are likely to be recognized even from the back, so you need to change your appearance. Igarashi Runa nodded and affirmed. In terms of character image, 0 Hour's appearance may be too special, and it is easy to leave an impression on others, but as long as he takes off his mask, takes off his 0 Hour suit, and blends into the crowd, no one will recognize him at all. Come out. But Kinzuru is different. Her appearance is also very special and very beautiful. It will even leave a deeper impression on men. Ninomiya Chizuru thought for a while and was speechless. And your hair color is also easy to recognize. Igarashi Runa reminded again. Ninomiya Chizuru held up her beloved's hair with her hands, feeling suddenly troubled. In order to protect your privacy and avoid being exposed, you also have to change clothes, Kurosawa, are you right? As she fell into entanglement, Igarashi Runa felt that the strength was not enough, so she simply called in foreign aid. Probably. Seeing Chizuru's good figure, Kurosawa Hikaru, who was already distracted, paused after hearing this. He didn't know how to reply for a while, so he could only respond casually. Because of the different ways of getting along and getting to know each other, he has always been very gentlemanly and polite when getting along with Chizuru. Because of this, he felt that if he agreed at this time, he might show that he really wanted to see Chizuru changing clothes in the car, although he really wanted to see it. When Ninomiya Chizuru saw that he was still agreeing, she felt a little unable to get off the horse for a while. Although there are differences between men and women, she just said there is no way to protect privacy and avoid exposure and put Kurosawa Hikaru on stage to perform, only to change her mind when it was her turn. Wouldn't that be two double standards? But thinking about it carefully, Kurosawa was still blocked by the seat, and even if he saw him changing clothes, it didn't seem unacceptable. Then where are the clothes I need to change into? Ninomiya Chizuru struggled for a long time because she didn't want him to feel like she had double standards, so she finally compromised. Ultimately, it was because she felt that it didn't matter even if Kurosawa saw her changing clothes. After all, just as Kurosawa was willing to let her watch her change clothes, they were a couple. Is there such a good thing? Seeing her nod, Kurosawa Hikaru's heartbeat began to accelerate uncontrollably. In fact, it may not be a good thing for couples to get along in a too polite way, and it will cause the relationship to progress too slowly. Just like him and Xiaoyuki, because they met in a relatively simple and rough way, they had their knees on each other soon after they met, and they went to check out a room and sleep in the same bed on the first night, although nothing special happened. But because of this, on the second date, I just put sunscreen on Yuki-chan, and it felt great. As for later, the relationship came naturally, and we rented a house more than once. The second time we applied sunscreen, we rented a house again. A man and a girl, they fell in love, and they reached the pinnacle of their lives. Where are my clothes? Ninomiya Chizuru made up her mind, looked around, and asked. What clothes? Igarashi Runa was a little confused. Didn't you ask me to change clothes? Yes, when you go out in the future, you should wear some clothes that can better cover up your figure. Remember to wear sunglasses, a mask, and a hat, and hide your hair. Also try to go to places with many people, and don't do it because afraid of being recognized. I run to places with fewer people. A huge question mark appeared above Ninomiya Chizuru's head. Kurosawa Hikaru's mood that was about to move came to an abrupt end, with a big question mark on his head. Shouldn't you change it now? Ninomiya Chizuru asked after being stunned. What's the use of changing now? Everyone who needs to know about you being Ninomiya Chizuru knows. Many people even know where you live, and they can't hide it even if they want to. Yes. Hearing this, Ninomiya Chizuru suddenly reacted and blushed a little. Obviously, she just misunderstood Runa's meaning. Just like what Runa said, her home address was known. She got off the bus halfway and had to go home in the end. There was no way to hide it. Aren't you bullying honest people? When Kurosawa Hikaru heard this, he couldn't hold back any longer. Ha 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 ha. Seeing that he looked a little angry, Igarashi Runa was not afraid. This little episode was her compensation and apology for the interruption just now. After all, the progress of the relationship between these two people was already slow, but she had interrupted it just now, so they had to add fuel to the fire. Runa, did you deliberately mislead me just now? With her happy laughter, Ninomiya Chizuru, who was still feeling embarrassed for thinking too much, suddenly felt resentful. No. By the way, you just asked me if I was free. Is there anything you want? Igarashi Runa noticed that she had reacted and felt like she had been caught. She shook her head guiltily and immediately changed the subject. It's okay, I just wanted to ask if you've been busy lately. When Ninomiya Chizuru saw her forcibly changing the topic, she simply followed her wishes. It's quite busy. Tonight's performance fully demonstrated the commercial value of 0 hour. It will be very busy next time. Igarashi Runa thought for a while and answered. Since you are very busy, there is nothing you can do. Why would you say so? Kurosawa and I are planning to go to Hakone for a vacation and soak in hot springs, and I wanted to ask you to go with us. Ninomiya Chizuru nodded slightly and said lightly. Want to go to the hot springs? Okay, soak in the hot springs and have a drink. That would be the ultimate happiness on earth. Hearing this statement, Igarashi Runa was pleasantly surprised. But since you've been so busy recently, let's go next time. Kurosawa and I will explore the way for you first and help you experience which hot spring is better. We'll go together after you're done. Ninomiya Chizuru knew that she liked hot springs very much, so she changed the topic. Ah, aren't you going to take me there? When Igarashi Runa heard this, she immediately reacted. It's not that I don't plan, it's that I can't help it. You see, you've been so busy lately. Ninomiya Chizuru shook her head, feeling helpless. I can make time. No, you get busy first. Are you the devil? You are the devil. Seeing her wailing, Ninomiya Chizuru seized the opportunity and said harshly. How dare Runa-I play tricks on her without even looking at who is smarter? It's true that the devil is as high as 1 foot and the Tao is as high as 1 foot. Kurosawa Hikaru sat there and watched their bickering without saying a word, just thinking to himself. As the saying goes, the authorities are confused but the bystanders are clear. For some reason, he had a feeling that Chizuru seemed to have won this quarrel, but in fact it was Miss Runa who won. If he guessed correctly, when Kinzuru asked, "Are you free recently?" Miss Runa guessed that Kinzuru wanted to take her on a date again, so she directly used local materials to create the scene just now. The drama further contributed to the current result. Dating 3 people is certainly a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. Because if 3 people are together and have no time to spend alone together, there is no way to create an ambiguous and exciting atmosphere, and naturally there will be no progress in the relationship. Call. Just as Kurosawa had guessed, Igarashi Runa whined a few times as a devil, but felt relieved in her heart. It was so dangerous that Kinzuru almost dragged her out on a date again. Although she didn't object to 3 people dating together, the relationship between Chizuru and Kurosawa was difficult to make progress, and she was really anxious watching from the side. You know, the relationship between Chizuru and Kurosawa has been stagnant, and she doesn't dare to take the lead. When she and Kurosawa are alone, they always have a sense of restraint and hesitation. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 433. Halfway through the journey, at a corner with relatively dim lighting, the car door opened and closed, and then it continued moving forward. Kurosawa Hikaru, who took advantage of this gap to slip out of the car, walked towards the dark place beside him. This way of hiding makes me feel more like an artist than on stage. After walking for a while, wearing a t-shirt, casual pants, and sneakers, the black light concealed some of the body shape. I looked back at the car driving away and couldn't help but sigh. Walking alone in the deserted streets at night, the cool evening breeze blows through. Unlike the hustle and bustle before the show, the time now is quiet. However, Kurosawa Hikaru is not a character who worries about gains and losses. Even if there is a huge gap between before and after, he will not have any strange thoughts. Instead, he enjoys such tranquility. After walking like this for a while, the cell phone in his pocket suddenly beeped. Taking out his phone, Kurosawa Hikaru glanced at it and realized it was a message from Chizuru. Kurosawa, wasn't it good what I did just now? What are you referring to? Just let's go play and leave Runa alone, she should also really want to go. After asking and answering questions, Kurosawa Hikaru suddenly had a headache when he saw this message. How should he reply to this? Although he had no communication with Miss Runa during this period. But it may be the tacit understanding between the manager and the artist, or it may be that smart people think in similar ways, so he can roughly feel what kind of thoughts are hidden behind Miss Runa's actions. For example, just now, maybe he didn't feel anything when it happened, but at the end, he suddenly enlightened. There is no doubt that Ms. Runa took great pains so that they could be alone together on their next date. It took a lot of effort to achieve such a result. After Kinzuru became angry, she calmed down and started to have sex and friends again. Okay, but is she free? After thinking about it, Kurosawa couldn't think of a good way, so he simply kicked the ball out. Runa, do you really want to go to the hot springs? In the car, Ninomiya Chizuru glanced at her phone, made up her mind, and asked again. Of course I want to. Let's soak in the hot springs, have a drink, and put away all the work and worries. There is no better vacation than this. Igarashi Runa, who was driving, nodded. While confirming, he also reminded them to drink on their next date. Different from the usual leisure time after work, it would be a waste to go on vacation or go on a date with a man and a woman. It would be a waste if you don't drink a little wine and let the relationship heat up quickly through the tipsy state. Then when can you find time? Let's go together. Seeing that she really wanted to go, Ninomiya Chizuru asked again. Are you going to take me with you? Hearing this, Igarashi paused and said in astonishment. Her face was full of disbelief. What's the situation? Why did it come back all of a sudden? Did I use too much force? Actually, I suggested going to the hot springs because I feel very tired recently and need to find time to relax. Kurosawa is very tired, and you are also very tired, so we just want to go together. Ninomiya Chizuru was sitting in the back seat and couldn't see her expression, so she just continued. I've been very busy recently. Let's go there next time. You guys go explore the road first and help me experience which hot spring is better. Didn't you just say you could spare some time? I mean, with tonight's grand occasion, I'm afraid I won't have time to go out for the next September. At most, I'll just go get a massage and drink some wine after get off work. Then let's go in October, after you finish your work. In October, Kurosawa's summer vacation ends and school starts. He has a weekend. Let's find a Friday night to leave and we can come back on Sunday. Realizing that she had postponed the time for so long just because she wanted to take him with her, Igarashi Runa felt a little subtle. You don't mean to say that you won't be free in October, right? Seeing her silence, Ninomiya Chizuru asked without giving her a chance to make excuses. It is very difficult to make up a lie, especially in front of smart people. How can a girl go on a date with her boyfriend and always bring her best friend with her? Sensing her pressing attitude, Igarashi Runa felt that her lie was about to be exposed, and couldn't help but sigh. She is very lucky to have a good friend like Kinzuru. Because if something good happens, he will never abandon her, but will want to cooperate with her so that everyone can be happy together. But good things must be distinguished. Kinzuru wants to take her with her when she goes on a date with her boyfriend. What kind of thing is this? You really don't want to go? Hearing this tone, Ninomiya Chizuru immediately found the answer and stared at her. Because this is a hard-earned date for you. Igarashi Runa stopped making excuses and admitted it frankly. Do you like hot springs? Ninomiya Chizuru was stunned when she heard this. It turned out that she was thinking about this kind of thing, and then asked. Although I like hot springs very much, there is no need to go with you this time, not to mention I have been really busy recently. Why is it not necessary? Let me ask you, how many times have you and Kurosawa dated so far? Seeing that she still didn't understand, Igarashi Runa simply asked. About 10 times. Chizuru Ninomiya thought about it for a moment and realized that her understanding of dating was very similar to Kurosawa's. It means that if two people agree in advance to meet and do something together, no matter what it is considered a date. In short, except for the inevitable meeting at school, every other meeting was regarded as a date in her opinion. You guys went on 3 dates in total, at the amusement park, sketching in Asira Valley, about 10 times. Did you date him more than 10 times? Igarashi Runa subconsciously continued the topic. He wanted to analyze it clearly for her, but when he heard this many times, he was immediately shocked. How could it be 3 times? That's too few. Ninomiya Chizuru heard this and denied it. Chizuru, How far has your relationship with Kurosawa progressed? Igarashi Runa was stunned by her. Unlike dates that are more than friends but not lovers, dates between lovers are actually very easy to create sparks. Because the two are in love, as long as one of them has an idea, it is not surprising that anything will happen when a man and a woman are alone. When Ninomiya Chizuru was asked about this, she couldn't help but raise a faint smile. Whether it was before or tonight when he met his parents, Kurosawa expressed his desire to marry her. In tonight's performance, in the song Dream Wedding, Kurosawa also conveyed to her the pain of missing "I once dreamed of a wedding with you, but I couldn't love you," which made her very sad. Feeling distressed. There is no doubt that they are now talking about marriage. Squeak. Igarashi Runa saw her charming smile through the rearview mirror and suddenly stepped on the brakes. Ouch, what are you doing? Because she was in the city and still in the back seat, Ninomiya Chizuru, who had not pulled on her seat belt, was thrown by the inertia of the sudden braking and her head hit the passenger seat directly, causing some pain. However, the instigator, Runa Igarashi, did not reply. Instead, after slamming on the brakes, he looked back at Chizuru in the back seat with a horrified expression. Could it be that the relationship between Chizuru and Kurosawa was not limited to kiss for a long time, but that after the love-hate torment, they became so deeply in love that they took the Shinkansen and rode all the way? Could it be that Chizuru actually transformed from a girl to a woman a long time ago, so she changed her mind and wanted to bring me, a good best friend, with her? Although many methods for distinguishing girls and women are popular on the internet and in society, they are just a generalization. In reality, everyone is different, has different personalities, and even has different physiques, so it is impossible to tell the difference with the naked eye. No, no. That shouldn't be the case. After thinking about it, Igarashi Runa always felt that something was wrong. She looked at Chizuru again, stared at her chest, and asked. Has Kurosawa rubbed your appa? What? How is that possible? What did you say suddenly? Ninomiya Chizuru was startled by this question, and felt a little embarrassed and ashamed by her stare, so he rolled his eyes at her. Sure enough, I thought too much. Seeing her reaction, Igarashi Runa breathed a sigh of relief. It was so dangerous, she thought she had missed a step, but in just a blink of an eye, he jumped from elementary school to university. What? Ninomiya Chizuru couldn't understand her and always found her strange. Chizuru, let me ask you, how far has your physical contact with Kurosawa progressed? The misunderstanding was resolved, Igarashi Runa calmed down, sat back and looked ahead, continued driving, and the conversation returned to normal. This time, in order to avoid the topic going astray, she simply spoke more directly. Anyway, they are good best friends and have often been outspoken since childhood. Why do you ask? You answer my question. Kiss. Ninomiya Chizuru was originally shy about asking this kind of question, but seeing her serious attitude, after hesitation, she suppressed her shame and answered her. Then do you want to have closer contact with Kurosawa? Seeing that her answer was as expected, Igarashi Runa asked again. Ninomiya Chizuru choked. Do you want to? Even without looking at her expression, Igarashi Runa could guess the answer. You know, a young girl who is just starting to fall in love will look forward to some sweet and exciting intimate contact with the person she likes. Such things are not only thought by boys, girls even think about them more than boys. He and I are a couple, so it's normal to think so, right? With her mind exposed, Ninomiya Chizuru found that she couldn't hide it from her, so she had to admit it. I didn't say it was abnormal, this is normal. Then why did you take me to the hot springs if you wanted to have further intimate contact with him? There is no conflict between these two things. Of course there are conflicts. Intimate contact usually only occurs when we are alone. Think about it, every time you kiss Kurosawa, is it mostly when you are alone? Seeing that she didn't understand yet, Igarashi Runa simply spoke clearly. It seems so. Ninomiya Chizuru nodded with understanding. Whenever she and Kurosawa were alone, they would kiss each other without even realizing it. That's it? In short, you just go on a date with him this time. You take me with you and the three of us act together. How can he kiss you? Or do you want him to kiss you before you kiss me? Igarashi Runa felt relieved when she saw that she finally understood this truth. Ninomiya Chizuru nodded. You don't really think so, do you? Igarashi Runa, who thought that she had successfully preached, was shocked when she heard the words, stepped on the brakes again, and looked back. This time, because of the previous lesson, Ninomiya Chizuru had already fastened her seat belt and was not thrown into a mess by inertia. I don't want to leave you behind. Ninomiya Chizuru's hair was flying, and she looked at her and nodded again, confirming her idea. Since she changed her mind, her thoughts were very clear, and she found that this kind of life was not bad. For example, in the future, when Kurosawa was going out to work, she and Runa went to see him off together, kissed her goodbye at the entrance, kissed her first, and then kissed Runa, or kissed Runa first and then kissed her. The order was fine. Unlike other girls, even if Kurosawa kissed Runa first and then kissed her, she would not dislike it. At present, Runa is far behind her. As Kurosawa's girlfriend, she has enjoyed many privileges, especially piano music. In contrast, Runa has been busy doing so much for Kurosawa's affairs, but has gained nothing. As a good girlfriend, she must do something. This. Seeing her attitude that was not joking, Runa Igarashi was speechless for a moment and didn't know how to respond. She originally thought that Chizuru wanted to drag her along, simply because she had just kept saying that she wanted to take a hot spring bath, and she was too strong to make Chizuru soft-hearted, and she didn't realize that a three-person date was not good for the progress of a relationship. But after the conversation just now, the situation does not seem to be like this. Chizuru's ideas and thoughts are more vigorous than she imagined, and she is a little overwhelmed. Anyway, I won't think that you will leave me behind. You can go alone with Kurosawa this time. Runa Igarashi held the steering wheel with both hands, and with the state of sitting firmly, forced herself to calm down and prioritize their date alone this time. Runa, don't you want to be his fourth girlfriend? Ninomiya Chizuru found that she just refused to go, and looked very repulsive, and suddenly had an ominous premonition. How did you come to such a conclusion? Igarashi Runa, who had just calmed down, felt like she was hit on the head, and was stunned again, looking back at her in disbelief. Because you don't want to go out with Kurosawa? Ninomiya Chizuru saw her reaction and secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and explained. I don't want to go, it's because your relationship with Kurosawa is progressing too slowly. It doesn't make sense. Igarashi Runa found that it was too slow to explain it to her in a roundabout way, so she simply made it clear. How is my relationship with Kurosawa progressing slowly? We have officially announced our relationship, and we have also met the parents and talked about marriage. Ninomiya Chizuru disagreed with this statement, raised her right hand slightly, and raised 3 fingers. You know you've met your parents and talked about marriage, but you've only kissed a few times in such a long time. You finally have a date, you go out alone, and you have the chance to spend the night outside, but you don't take advantage of it. You want to drag me to be a light bulb and affect your intimacy. Igarashi Runa rolled her eyes and said unhappily when she found that she was still acting great. If she guessed correctly, Ichinose Yuki would have walked the ladder of adulthood with Kurosawa a long time ago. Even more, Ichinose Yuki went to Kurosawa's house, just like a daily routine. In contrast, this love rookie was satisfied with kissing, and even thought she was slow and wanted to help her. Maybe my speed is not good, but you are slower. And you are busy starting a business now, so you don't have the opportunity to get along with him, let alone have intimate contact. Seeing that she was still angry, Ninomiya Chizuru didn't care at all and reminded her. Who do you think is holding me back so slowly? Igarashi Runa looked at her with some resentment. If Chizuru ran faster, she would not have the trouble of overtaking, and she would have caught up with Ichino's Yuki's progress. You don't mean to say that I'm holding you back, do you? Ninomiya Chizuru was stunned when she heard this, raised her slender jade finger, pointed at her face, and looked at her in disbelief. What a joke, it's Runa who is holding back. If she hadn't been worried that she would run too fast and Runa would not be able to keep up, her relationship with Kurosawa would have gone a step further. In order to prevent her from being left behind, she knew that if she went to the hot spring hotel with Kurosawa, it might have a good development, but after careful consideration, she decided to bring Runa with her. What do you think? Because you and Kurosawa are still at the kiss, and I don't want to surpass you. I have restrained myself several times and resisted doing more with him. You are holding back. Ninomiya Chizuru found that she really thought so, and she was immediately dissatisfied. If you and him had progressed faster, there wouldn't be a need for it to be like this. The performance was obviously over, and he also got the approval of his uncle and aunt. It was a good time for double happiness, but in the end they went back to their own homes. You can just hug him and sleep happily tonight. At this point, Igarashi Runa didn't hide it anymore and wanted to wake her up. God knows how she felt when she saw Ichino's Yuki waiting at the door twice when she went to Kurosawa's house to find him. To say she was sad didn't count, she just felt envious, jealous, and anxious. If you hold him to sleep, the progress will be too fast. Ninomiya Chizuru's heart trembled, she suddenly blushed, lowered her head and whispered. In fact, when she proposed to go to a hot spring hotel together, she had thought about sleeping with Kurosawa in her arms. But this idea still stayed in her heart, eager to move, unable to express it, thinking about the possibility of traveling to Hakone together to soak in hot springs. She didn't know whether she should take the step, but she couldn't think of any more intimate contact than kiss. Obviously she couldn't think of it, but tonight's hug counted. She sat in Kurosawa's arms, the soft seat turned into a hard seat, and there was a touch that made her heart beat faster and made her blush shyly. What kind of cute creature is this? Igarashi Runa, who was originally full of resentment, was cute when he saw her sudden shyness. Anyway, you go to the hot spring hotel with Kurosawa this time and sleep with him. After being cued by her, Igarashi Runa's resentment evaporated. He calmed down again and made a unilateral decision for her. Ah! Ninomiya Chizuru was shocked when she heard such a simple and crude statement. As an adult, she still knows that sleeping with him and sleeping with him are completely different concepts. Ah, what? Isn't it natural for lovers to do this kind of thing? And you are not children, but adults who are talking about marriage. Igarashi Runa rolled her eyes at her, really surprised. How to sleep? Ninomiya Chizuru was a little embarrassed to say it, but she was also looking forward to it. You ask me? Just spend the night alone with Kurosawa in a room, and then use your charming big eyes and long legs to think of a solution. Igarashi Runa was stunned when she heard this, and then looked at her beautiful and cute face that was still shy, and her long and beautiful legs. With such appearance conditions, do you still need a method? Let alone a man, if Chizuru tried to seduce her, even a woman would be willing to climb into her bed. A good day starts with a delicious breakfast. Really not bad. Kurosawa Hikaru looked at the breakfast in front of him, took a deep breath, and was very satisfied. Although the system rewards many skills, the only skill that can be applied to every day is cooking. After possessing this skill, he can make breakfast in different ways according to his own taste every day. Kurosawa Hikaru felt the beauty of breakfast, picked up 2 plates, and walked out of the kitchen. Brother Guang. As soon as he walked out of the kitchen, Kurosawa Hikaru heard a sweet call. You shouted so loudly, "Are you hungry?" Kurosawa followed the sound and smiled. On the dining table in the living room, Ichino's Yuki was sitting there, with a pair of slender white jade arms raised high, waving enthusiastically at him. She was wearing a pink and white t-shirt that was 2 sizes too big. This was a trendy way to wear invisible clothing, which could cover up short skirts or pants. She was as fresh and sweet as the girl next door, but also revealed her indescribable sexiness. Under the table, her beautiful legs were missing her culottes. Her big white legs outside her t-shirt were smooth and tender, and her fluffy slippers were hanging in the air. She looked particularly sweet and charming. If I'm hungry, I won't make my voice louder. I just want to shout to you. Ichino's Yuki shook her head, her long golden wavy hair swaying, fluffy and beautiful. Are you really not hungry? Kurosawa Hikaru noticed that she was still being stubborn and walked over step by step with 2 plates of breakfast. Hungry. Ichino's Yuki, who was still denying it at first, saw the breakfast he brought getting closer and closer, and as the smell hit his nostrils, he immediately gave up. Ha ha ha. Kurosawa Hikaru smiled, put breakfast on the table, walked over and sat down next to her. Because their stomachs were empty, neither of them hesitated and ate first. Delicious. Ichino's Yuki took the chopsticks, picked up a piece of egg roll and put it into his mouth, then licked the corners of his mouth and smiled. Eat slowly. Kurosawa Hikaru was in a good mood when he saw her crooked eyes and healing smile. This girl has finally figured out his schedule, that is, Tuesdays and Thursdays, because he has to go to tutoring, so he usually makes time. In the mornings of these 2 days, he is very likely to be free, so you can run over to him. For Xiao Yuki, it doesn't have to be something to do with him, as long as she can be with him. Brother Guang, can we shoot the MV earlier? After eating breakfast for a while, Ichino's Yuki turned around, looked at his handsome side face, and plucked up the courage to speak. Why are you asking about this suddenly? According to MS Runa's arrangement, isn't it scheduled for you to debut in the Beautiful Girl contest? Kurosawa Hikaru was a little confused. He had already made a plan to rely on these super famous classic piano songs and his shooting skills to serve as Xiao Yuki's debut song. However, the reason why it has been shelved and not filmed is because of MS Runa's judgment as an agent. Alright. Ichino's Yuki lowered her head in frustration. Don't be so sad. Just tell me what you think. Maybe I will agree. Seeing her like this, Kurosawa Hikaru quickly coaxed. Although a plan is a plan, the plan can be changed. The key is to keep your girlfriend happy. Because I want Dream Wedding to be uploaded to YouTube as soon as possible. Realizing that there was still a chance of improvement, Ichino's Yuki paused and said. In fact, she was a little jealous. When she saw Miss Ninomiya yesterday, she looked extremely dazzling both on stage and during the performance. She knows that even if Dream Wedding is uploaded, the topic and attention will not be higher than Adilina by the waterside. After all, there cannot be 2 official love announcements in 0 hour, but she still wants to take action stand up. She wants to become famous quickly, make money quickly, buy a sports car for Brother Guang, drive together, buy a villa, and live in a new house together. Do you want everyone to hear your piano music earlier? Hearing this request, Kurosawa Hikaru had some realization and guessed what she was thinking. As soon as he finished speaking, before he could wait for Yuki Ichino's to speak, the phone in his pocket suddenly rang, and it was Line's notification tone. When people are chatting with each other, if there is any movement on the mobile phone, it will be an opportunity to temporarily stop the conversation. Because at this time, anyone who has a little bit of self-consciousness will keep quiet and let people solve the problem first. Who could be sending this message so early? A schoolgirl. Hearing this movement, Kurosawa Hikaru was a little surprised. Under normal circumstances, Sister Kinhee would not take the initiative to send him a message, because even if she missed him, she would not say it, but would miss him implicitly. Ms. Runa is probably very busy today. Even if she has work matters, she will accumulate a certain amount and tell him all at once. As for the future, it is even less likely, and we can still meet in the afternoon. And Xiao Yuki is by his side now. After elimination, it's Miki Shiraha. After all, he just encouraged his schoolgirl yesterday and told her to send a message if she missed him. Realizing that he was not moving, but was thinking, Ichino's Yuki, who was drinking milk, looked away silently. Kurosawa Hikari, who was still thinking, found that she was so well behaved, so he simply took out his phone to read the message. At this glance, he discovered that the person who sent the message early in the morning was his mother. Agwang, are you awake? If you have time, give mom a call. After reading the message, Kurosawa Hikaru glanced sideways at the cute and smart little Yuki who was drinking milk next to him, raised the corners of his mouth, and made a voice call. Mom, good morning. As the call was connected, Kurosawa Hikaru spoke enthusiastically. It turns out to be Brother Guang's mother. Yuki Ichino's, who originally thought it was some girl who sent a message to Brother Hikaru early in the morning and turned away, was a little surprised when he heard this opening statement. Agwang, were you awakened by my message? There were only 2 people at home, and the TV was not turned on. It was very quiet, and Yuki Ichino's could hear the voice on the phone. No, I woke up long ago. Didn't you say you wanted to take your girlfriend back to your hometown? Yes. What time will you return? Well, it should be next week, just wait a moment and I'll ask her for her opinion. Kurosawa Hikaru originally wanted to answer immediately, but after thinking about it, he still did not make a unilateral decision and said, Xiao Yuki, how about you accompany me back to your hometown next week? After saying that, he turned to Yuki Ichino's and asked. Huh? Okay. Ichino's Yuki, who was still eavesdropping, was startled when he heard this sudden question, and then nodded obediently. Thinking that this was not enough, he answered again. Mom, she said yes, we will go back next week. Agwang, are you and your girlfriend together? Kurosawa's mother, Kurosawa Yayoi, was also shocked. Yes, we are having breakfast together. Kurosawa Hikari immediately became happy when he saw the surprised reactions of both people. Surprise is something that happens unexpectedly and unexpectedly. Then I won't disturb you for now. I'll wait until you come back. Mom has to go to work. Kurosawa Yayoi was a little nervous and felt that the timing of her call was not right, so she ran away like a frightened rabbit. Immediately afterwards, the voice call was ended unilaterally. Ah, hang up. Kurosawa Hikaru was stunned when he heard the sound of voice interruption. However, he suddenly became happy. With his understanding and understanding of his mother should be in a good mood in the coming days, and this joy will be passed on to his father. Xiao Yuki, do you want to shoot a MV so that everyone can hear your piano music earlier? After ending the call, Kurosawa Hikaru looked at Yuki Ichino's and dropped the topic. Regarding this matter, he felt it necessary to ask clearly. You know, Xiao Yuki rarely makes requests to him, but now that he is making requests, there must be a reason. Brother Guang, are you going back to your hometown next week? However, how could Ichino's Yuki be jealous? Instead, she was at a loss. It's not me, it's us, I've been busy in August. If I don't go back to my hometown in September, school will start if I continue to postpone it. Kurosawa Hikaru was a little amused when he saw her nervous look. It was early August when he promised his mother to take his girlfriend home. Because there were so many things after the archery competition, he forgot about it without paying attention, thanks to his mother's reminder. Do you really want to take me back to my hometown? Ichino's Yuki's eyes widened. You promised before and just now. Do you want to go back on it? Seeing her reaction, Kurosawa pretended to be angry. Among his 5 girlfriends, Xiaoyuki is the youngest, but she is the most well-behaved and sensible. She made few requests. When she went out to play, it didn't even matter if she ate at a roadside restaurant with him. Knowing that he was free, even if she only had time in the morning, she would get up early and take the early subway to come to his house to find him. If a sensible child doesn't have candy, he won't allow this to happen. No. Brother Guang, I didn't mean to regret it, it was just too sudden. I don't know what to do. I'm sorry, don't be angry. Seeing his unhappy look, Ichino's Yuki's eyes widened. Even though he was at a loss, he hurriedly shook his head and explained. I'm not angry. I'm just pretending to be angry and joking with you. Don't take it seriously. Seeing that she was not scared, Kurosawa immediately stopped acting and coaxed with a smile. Are you kidding? Looking at his smiling face, Ichino's Yuki's heartbeat was very fast, but it was not because of heartbeat, but because of shock. Brother Guang's pretending to be angry was so powerful. With that look, that tone, that expression, and that aura, she thought he was really angry. Xiaoyuki, I really want to take you back to my hometown to meet my parents. If you don't want to, I can tell her. Kurosawa Hikaru noticed that her mind had shifted, and she was no longer thinking about the MV. He simply dealt with this matter first, reached out to touch her head, soothed her emotions, and said softly. It's not that I don't want to, it's just that I don't know if I should go see your parents. Facing the matter of meeting her parents again, Ichino's Yuki shook her head slightly, feeling a little nervous. As long as you muster up the courage to go back and meet with me, my parents are very easy to get along with. Kurosawa knew that this was not a simple matter, but he still enlightened her. But I'm only a high school student, and my school is pretty bad. Yuki Ichino's had a different view than him and said with a wry smile. Academic qualifications are not everything. You are still an artist idol. My parents know that my girlfriend is a celebrity and she is so beautiful. They will be happy for a long time. Seeing how negative and inferior she was, Kurosawa Hikaru could understand her feelings and encouraged her. Because he had met Mirai's parents and Chizuru's parents before, and they may have behaved well, but he was very nervous. If the parents he wants to meet are Xiaoyuki's parents, as a Todai student, he can be very confident. But in front of Kinzuru and his future parents, his education from Tokyo University was nothing. At most, it was one of the advantages on his resume. I haven't debuted yet, so I'm not an artist or an idol. Brother Guang, why don't you take Miss Ninomiya back? Or Miss Shifenjian, they will definitely make your parents happy for a long time. Ichino's Yuki shook her head and backed down. Xiaoyuki, don't you want to go back to your hometown with me? Realizing that she was saying this again, unlike last time over the phone, this time face to face, Kurosawa looked at her squarely and asked. Of course I want to, but I don't have them. When Yuki Ichino's faced this question, he had the answer without hesitation, but he was just worried. If Brother Guang had only one girlfriend, she would have had it no matter what. But she knew that Brother Guang had other girlfriends, and each one was prettier than the last, and their conditions were so good that they were enviable. When something happened, she couldn't help but want to rely on them. The most important thing is that she really thinks it would be better for Brother Guang to take the other 2 people back. Not so much but, as long as you want to. However, Kurosawa Hikaru didn't give her that many reasons and interrupted. But, seeing that he had settled the matter, Ichino's Yuki immediately became anxious. Say it again. Kurosawa Hikaru noticed that she still didn't give up and glared at her. I won't talk anymore, I'm sorry. After receiving a fierce glare from him, Ichino's Yuki immediately didn't dare to say anything, and then lowered his head and apologized. Well. Kurosawa Hikaru turned his head and looked at her with her head lowered and her submissive look, looking like a victim, and couldn't help but sigh. In front of him, Xiao Yuki was really too humble. She had never even quarreled or bickered with him, and she rarely even gave him a look. Every time he was slightly unhappy, Xiao Yuki would lower his head and admit his mistake and beg for mercy, for fear of making him unhappy. Maybe everyone has their own personality, but he knows that this is not caused by personality. In the final analysis, Xiao Yuki has too low self-esteem and is not confident enough. Xiao Yuki, why do you think it would be better for them to go back with me? After eating a few bites of breakfast, Kurosawa calmed down and put down the chopsticks in his hands and decided to have a good talk with her. Because they're smarter, prettier, and more likable. After hearing this, Yuki Ichinose responded honestly. Don't you think you're smart? You're not pretty, you're not lovable. Kurosawa Hikaru took advantage of the loophole in her words and asked again. Can't compare to them. Ichinose Yuki thought of Ninomiya Chizuru and Shifunjin Mirai. They were like the sun and the moon, high and dazzling. No matter where they went, they were the center of attention. Don't think about comparing with them, you have to know that you are also very smart, you are very beautiful, you are very lovable. Kurosawa Hikaru disagrees with this. In the final analysis, comparing yourself with others is actually a bad habit. Just like there are no leaves with the same texture in this world, as long as there is comparison, there will be differences. I'm not smart at all. In fact, Ichinose Yuki also knows that her appearance is not bad, and she is very likable except when she was slandered in the past, but she has obvious shortcomings. You just have bad grades, but that doesn't mean you're not smart. But good grades are proof of intelligence. Good grades are not used to prove whether a person is smart or not, or have a high IQ, but are used to prove the results a person has achieved through persistence and hard work. Kurosawa Hikaru shook his head, disagreeing with her opinion. In his view, good grades and intelligence cannot be equated. Just like him, maybe his grades are very good, but they are just the result of putting in more effort than his peers. He never feels that he is very smart. If you think you are smarter than someone with poor grades just because you have good grades, you will most likely be a fool. Ichinose Yuki didn't know whether to speak or not because she didn't want to argue with Hikaru. Xiao Yuki, do you think my parents would be happier if either Chizuru or Mirai accompanied me back? Seeing her silence, Kurosawa Hikaru naturally didn't want to talk to her about some serious truth, but returned to the topic. Right. Ichinose Yuki nodded, that's what she thought. I can tell you with certainty that this will never be the case. Seeing that she really thought so, Kurosawa Hikaru immediately said. Why? Ichinose Yuki didn't understand why he could say so absolutely. Because everyone's charm is different. No one is perfect. No one can be perfect. As long as the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, it is good as the saying goes. Seeing that she didn't understand, Kurosawa explained patiently. This is his opinion. Today, Xiao Yuki will not dare to meet his parents with him because her grades are not good enough. Next time, Chizuru will probably be afraid because she is too old and because she used to be a teacher. Meaning. However, no matter what the reason is, their advantages far outweigh their disadvantages. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 434. Do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? Yuki Ichinose murmured to himself thoughtfully, looking at Brother Hikaru in front of him. He could understand the meaning. Just like Brother Guang, his advantages are simply too numerous to count. He is handsome, highly educated, gentle, considerate, humorous and approachable. These are his character advantages. In addition, he is also good at various talents. Singing, swimming, surfing, photography, makeup, playing the piano, archery, cooking, skating. This is just the tip of the iceberg, and it shouldn't be all of Brother Guang. It is no exaggeration to say that she doesn't know anything that Brother Guang doesn't know how to do. In contrast, his shortcomings are one and only one, and that is his playfulness. Brother Guang, what are my advantages? After carefully counting the advantages and disadvantages of Brother Hikaru in his mind, Ichi-nose Yuki suddenly became curious about what he looked like in his eyes. Well. Hearing this question, Kurosawa Hikaru looked at her and fell into deep thought. Can't you think of any? Seeing his serious thinking, Ichi-nose Yuki was immediately shocked. How could it be? It's just that you have too many advantages. Kurosawa raised his eyes to meet hers, shook his head and said seriously. Really? Really, for example, you are beautiful, which is also an advantage. Only looks. Yuki Ichi-nose was not very satisfied with this answer. She knew that her face was beautiful, but her appearance was not her only advantage. Don't worry, I haven't finished speaking yet. Kurosawa Hikaru was not surprised when he saw her reaction. The reason why he was thinking just now was that he had a vague feeling that compliments on appearance would not satisfy her, let alone cheer her up. Good. Ichi-nose Yuki nodded, knowing that he was indeed too impatient. Let me think again. Kurosawa Hikaru could understand her emotions, comforted her, and fell into thinking again. Xiao Yuki is definitely willing to accompany him back to his hometown. Putting aside everything else, just seeing the place where he used to live will make him happy. However, the reason why she was hesitant was because she was afraid that she would not do well enough. Without comparison, there is no distinction between good and bad, strong and weak. She felt that others could do better, so she was timid. You are healing. After Kurosawa Hikaru thought carefully, he finally found the answer and spoke. Cure. Ichi-nose Yuki waited patiently for this answer, but was confused. Because this answer was beyond her knowledge. You are very healing. When you are with me, you are always happy and have a smile on your face. Kurosawa looked at her expression, nodded slightly, and confirmed. He has a crush on Yuki-chan, maybe because she's beautiful, but he likes her for reasons other than just her looks. Every time Xiao Yuki sees him, she will be extremely surprised and smile happily, as if she is meeting her favorite person. The feeling that her heart and eyes are full of you can make any man addicted to it and unable to extricate himself. Is this considered an advantage? Ichi-nose Yuki felt ashamed and her face became hot. She actually likes this evaluation. It's not that she doesn't agree with it, but she doesn't know if it's an advantage. No one has mentioned it before. Of course, because seeing you so happy makes me cheer up sometimes even if I am in a bad mood. Kurosawa Hikaru looked sure, maybe Xiao Yuki is not the best in many aspects, but a person's charm never requires a person to be the best in a certain aspect, but lies in personality. It is true that compared to Mirai and Chizuru, Xiao Yuki is indeed not good enough in terms of numerical values on paper. However, when he gets along with Xiao Yuki, he is actually the most relaxed. Aha! Ichi-nose Yuki was very happy to see that he really thought so. Most people spend their whole lives not knowing what kind of person they are, and she is the same. In the past, she had never thought about how she was inferior to other girls. Her personality was not competitive. But recently, due to the appearance of Ninomiya Chizuru and Shifunjin Mirai, who are also Hikaru's girlfriends, she can't help but do something when she sees their shining figures when she is alone. Compared. Are you satisfied with my answer? Kurosawa Hikaru looked at her happy expression with a smile, and her beautiful blue eyes were full of energy, knowing that she had finally regained her energy. Foolish people are blessed. Although Xiao Yuki is not smarter than others, but because of this, she is the easiest to feel satisfied. Satisfy. Ichi-nose Yuki nodded. She liked the comment that it was very healing. Since you are satisfied, there is no need to talk about other advantages. Kurosawa Hikaru saw that she actually nodded, with a stupid look on his face, a smile appeared on his lips, and he continued to eat breakfast. Ah, I have to mention all the other advantages, too. All of them. Ichi-no-Yuki was stunned for a moment, then realized what he was doing, then she grabbed his arm and shook him and started acting coquettishly. Do you want to tell me everything? Kurosawa's body was swayed by her pull, like a roly-poly, with a troubled expression. He looked at her sideways, but his eyes were very doting. Ding. As the elevator reaches the corresponding floor, it makes a crisp sound and the door opens automatically. Before Kurosawa Hikaru even took a step forward, there was already a maid waiting outside the elevator. Good afternoon, Mr. Kurosawa. Sayaka Akai's hairstyle and attire are the same throughout the year. She has short hair and a capable temperament. She bows to him. Good afternoon. Kurosawa Hikaru nodded slightly and greeted her. Please come with me. The eldest lady has been waiting in the study for a long time. After a simple greeting, Sayaka Akai led the way for him. Isn't she staying in the room this time? Following her footsteps, Kurosawa Hikaru was a little surprised and spoke in a low voice. Under normal circumstances, he would usually wait in the study room first, and then come downstairs. The eldest lady seems to want to see you as soon as possible. She has a lot to say to you. Akai Sayaka nodded slightly and responded softly without looking back. Did she hold back a lot of words during last night's performance? Hearing this, Kurosawa Hikaru could roughly understand the situation. Please come in. Sayaka Akai opened the door for him and let him in first. Entering the room, Kurosawa Hikaru saw the beautiful figure in front of the desk. Saifunjayuan Mirai, who had waterfall-like black hair and snow-white skin, seemed to have heard the movement a long time ago and sat there looking at him. As soon as their eyes met, Saifunjayuan Mirai patted the chair next to him and motioned for him to sit over quickly. Seeing this, Kurosawa complied with her request and walked over quickly. Agwang, how could you come up with such a good song? Before he sat down, Saifunjayuan Mirai asked impatiently as he just walked to the side. Which song are you referring to? Canon. Kurosawa Hikaru asked as he sat upright. Of course it's Autumn Whispers. Sifenuen gave him a blank look in the future. Although she likes Canon very much, it is still not as good as Autumn Whispers. Everyone likes different things. For her, the piano music given to her by Kurosawa Hikaru was simply the best gift in the world. Whether it's Autumn or Whispers, these two elements completely hit the spot in her heart. In addition, the melody and main theme of this piano music are also in line with her preferences. I just thought about your appearance and came up with it bit by bit. Do you like it? Kurosawa smiled when he saw her eyes shining and she looked like she liked her very much. What do you think? Saifunjayuan found that he was a little proud in the future and seemed to praise me a lot, so he rolled his eyes at him in a funny way. This bad guy knows that she likes her very much, but he still asks. Then I'll find time next time and play it to you alone. Realizing that she was a little embarrassed, Kurosawa Hikaru stopped teasing her. How was it last night? Remember this agreement, Saifunjayuan said curiously in the future. In fact, she actually went backstage last night and met with 0 Hour, and she did it in the presence of bystanders. This was to create evidence. Maybe she expressed her love and surprise for the performance last night, but that was for outsiders to see. That's why she was so anxious today, because she couldn't convey her true thoughts clearly. It went very well, but my uncle was not very satisfied with me. Seeing that she wanted to intervene, Kurosawa didn't hide it from her. Are you dissatisfied with this? Have you talked about your background? The future of Saifunjayuan is really incomprehensible. From her point of view, Kurosawa Hikaru was already impeccable as a husband. They asked, and I told them, but they don't seem to have heard of Brother Shinichi's name. Just tell me. They will definitely ask before the next meeting. When they ask clearly, they will be satisfied. After learning about this situation, Sifan was immediately relieved in the future. According to her investigation and understanding, the Ninomiya couple are very snobbish and ambitious, and are extremely persistent in climbing up. In this case, even if Kurosawa Hikaru has any shortcomings, they will be outweighed by the invincible backstage. Let's not talk about this. Let's go to the beach this Sunday. What should we do? Kurosawa Hikaru felt that it was not good to discuss adult matters with his girlfriend, so after thinking about it, he came up with a good idea and guided her. This Sunday. When Sifan heard these words in the future, he was not in a good mood, and his reaction was a little subtle. Yes, the performance is over. I don't have any fixed work arrangements for the time being. This time I can go out and play without any distractions. Kurosawa Hikaru nodded slightly and affirmed with some expectation. Unlike a piano recital, it must be made public and progress must be on time. Although he still has a lot of work to do next, such as fulfilling obligations and shooting commercials, the shooting date is negotiable. After all, his current status is very high. Even if he makes his partners wait for an extra week, it shouldn't matter. He can just say something nice and get over it. In front of him, there are currently 3 things that must be resolved with priority. Go to the beach with Mirai, go on vacation with Chizuru, and take little Yuki back to her hometown. The sooner the better for these 3 things, whether it is to avoid date conflicts or to relax. He plans to go on a date with Future at the beach first. Because after the relationship between him and the Future was exposed, they have not gone out on a date together so far. Seeing the expectant look on his face, Sifan opened his mouth in the Future, but hesitated. What's wrong? Kurosawa Hikaru felt something was wrong with her expression and expressed concern. Agwang, why don't you wait until I go to college to go to the beach? After Sifan hesitated in the Future, he made up his mind to make it clear to him. Why? Don't you really want to go? Kurosawa Hikaru was stunned when he heard this and didn't understand why she changed her mind. I really want to go, but it's not worth the risk of making my parents angry by going to the beach. If I go again next year, the risk won't be that big. Seeing his happiness come to an abrupt end, Sifan Mirai felt sad, but in order to be honest with him, she expressed her concerns. Hearing these words, Kurosawa Hikaru fell into deep thought. Most people, when faced with changes, will always have concerns and dare not take that step easily. Only a few people will move forward resolutely when faced with changes. Agwang, I really want to go, but I don't dare to take the risk. I don't want to lose you. Seeing that he remained silent, Sifan Mirai held his hand under the table, her lips trembled, and she smiled bitterly. Because of last night's performance, her love for Kurosawa Hikaru deepened. She was proud of Kurosawa's excellence. She was pleasantly surprised by Kurosawa's masterpiece. Are you worried that our elopement will cause unnecessary risks and make your mother angry? Feeling her movements and her nervousness, Kurosawa Hikaru could probably guess what she was thinking. A gentleman does not stand behind a dangerous wall. This is the character of a wise man. Going ahead even though he is aware of the danger is what a foolish person would do. Among the laws of economics, there is a law called loss aversion, that is, human nature is more afraid of losing than gaining. Although our relationship is approved by Grandpa, there is no need to conflict with my mother. Sifan nodded in the Future and said with a wry smile. She wanted to go to the beach with Agwang. She wanted to show him how she looked in a swimsuit, and she wanted to go to different places with him. As long as she goes with Agwang, even if she eats smoothies together or walks on the beach together, she feels that she will be extremely happy and satisfied. It was precisely because she knew that this would be wonderful and that after she graduated from college, She and Kurosawa would do countless such things, so after she realized the risk, she suddenly felt timid. I have the business card of the head of the family. Seeing her locking herself into the cage again, Kurosawa said immediately. When a person is afraid, it is very difficult to calm his fear and take a brave step. This is like asking a person who is afraid of water to swim. Although he thinks it is easy, for someone who is afraid, it is as difficult as climbing to the sky. Just to go to the beach, there's no need to use the family head's business card. Agwang, can we wait until later? Hearing this trump card, Sifenuen shook his head, gently rubbed the back of his hand with his fingers, and prayed in a low voice. She wanted to go to the beach with Agwang. She didn't want to make Agwang unhappy, but she really couldn't help it. She is not an ordinary girl, let alone staying up all night. She has to report to her mother wherever she goes since she was a child. Even when she went to the performance last night, she discussed it with her mother in advance, because her mother thought that listening to the concert could relax her mood and cultivate her sentiments, and she only agreed after she recognized her partial piano skills. She didn't dare to take risks, she wanted to wait until the day she graduated from college and married Kurosawa. Seeing her pitiful appearance, Kurosawa Hikaru was speechless, very intolerable, and even more heartbroken. He thought that after meeting his parents, there would be no barrier between him and the future, and he would not be afraid of elopement. But now it seems that he has cleared the obvious obstacles, but the biggest problem has never been solved, that is, the fear of her mother in the future. He generally understands this fear. Because children are really powerless when facing their parents. It's like Chizuru demonized her parents, harboring resistance and fear, as if they were the most difficult people to deal with in the world, but after he actually came into contact with them, they just felt like that. This result is the result of getting along day and night, and the past bit by bit. I use the family head's business card to propose marriage to Mr. Zhenlong. Can I marry you directly? Kurosawa Hikaru pondered for a long time and came up with the only solution. As for the future, the only thing that can really help her get rid of the shackles of Caged Bird is to marry him and leave the Sifenjayuan family. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 435. Actually, I have thought of this method before, but I looked through the family rules manual. The holder of the family head's business card is regarded as a VIP of the Sifenjayuan family. If he encounters any trouble, he can seek help from the Maplewood Consortium to the maximum extent possible within a reasonable range. Help as much as possible. Facing this proposal, Sifenjayuan shook his head in the future and explained. She wanted to escape from the Sifenjayuan family's prison more than anyone else. She wanted freedom more than anyone else, so she had already thought of this method. Since we are actively making friends, wouldn't it be better if I marry you? Anyway, your grandfather also supports us being together. Kurosawa Hikaru knew very little about the golden business card placed on the high cabinet at home, so he was puzzled when he heard these words. So far, he still hadn't thought of using that business card to make any request. In the Family Rules Manual, there are many details about the maximum amount within a reasonable range. This includes but is not limited to helping you run for parliament, helping you start a business, helping you clear your name, etc. The upper limit of funds is 100 billion yen. Finally, there is a rule that must not affect the personal safety and interests of direct members of the Sifenjayuan family. If there is a major impact, all the above rules will be invalid. Sifenjayuan saw that he didn't understand in the future and explained it clearly to him. That's not what's on that business card. This was the first time Kurosawa Hikaru heard the detailed regulations. You know what underlying meaning I saw between the lines? Sifenjayuan nodded in the future and asked again. No matter what difficulties the distinguished guests have, everything will be focused on the direct members of the Sifenjayuan family. There was no need for her to say anything. As a college student, Kurosawa Hikaru could understand the meaning. If you think about it carefully, it is indeed unrealistic to order the direct members of the Sifenjayuan family with just a business card of the family head. Grandpa does not object to us being together. He is even happy to see us together. It is not an exaggeration to say that we have a verbal engagement. But marrying me directly is equivalent to affecting the direct members of the family, which means everything is invalid. Sifenjayuan saw that he was so smart in the future, so he saved some words and concluded. Then I can only wait until you graduate from college before you can get married. Kurosawa Hikaru was convinced by her analysis and insights, and frowned at this conclusion. Perhaps for many people, getting married is equivalent to entering the tomb of marriage. But for the future, it is the door to freedom. Just like after he got the system, he suddenly got out of the boring life of studying hard and began to become free and do whatever he wanted. For the future, if you want to escape from the shackles of your mother and family, getting married and changing your surname is a crucial step. It's possible that it will be earlier. It depends on how you talk to Grandpa. But if you want to talk to him again, you must achieve substantial results. Sifenuen shook his head slightly in the future, his eyelashes drooped slightly, and he was also helpless about his situation. Kurosawa Hikari fell into thought. In fact, even if you marry him in the future, you will not be able to gain true freedom. You will have a maid to serve you everywhere. You know, the reason why the Sifenjayuan family marries their daughter is ultimately to join forces with more powerful people and to bind them together with more rich, powerful, and potential people. In order to completely ensure the stable relationship of the alliance, the Sifenjayuan family usually collects evidence and grasps the key points. Having a gun and not using it, and not having a gun to use are two different things. Although he used the value of freedom to instigate the rebellion of Sayaka Akai, this was just a delaying tactic and failed to completely solve the problem. Akai Sayaka's alliance with him actually entailed a great risk. Once exposed, the consequences would be disastrous. For them, it was a maid replacement. Putting aside the post-marriage life, it will take many years. Before that, what should he do to get the future out of her mother's clutches earlier? This is the most important issue to deal with right now. Well, seeing him in distress over his own affairs, Sifenjayuan Mirai couldn't help but sigh. She really wanted to go to the beach and even bought a swimsuit. But after the excitement of anticipation, she suddenly calmed down and felt a sense of fear. Humans are very emotional creatures, which is a good thing and a bad thing. In many things, acting emotionally will lead to unsatisfactory results. Agwang, let's forget it this time. There is no need to conflict with my mother just for the sake of temporary happiness. She can't affect the oral engagement that Grandpa agreed to, but as my direct guardian, she can fire you. After all, she was recruited. After thinking for a long time, Sifenuen held his hand tightly in the future again and told him what he was most worried about. Maybe it would be nice to go to the beach, but just for an indulgence, she really couldn't accept it if the number of meetings with Kurosawa Hikaru became once a week before she was admitted to Tokyo University. She would rather go to the beach later so that she could see Agwang several times a week. The last time Agwang had a conflict with her mother, she was scared to death. Can the owner's business card be given to others? Kurosawa lowered his head slightly and looked at her beautiful jade hands, which were as white as if they had never been illuminated by the sun. They were as beautiful as works of art. He then raised his eyes to look at her face. After thinking deeply, he asked. Of course, it can be passed down as a family heirloom to future generations. Sifenuen was stunned for a moment in the future, not understanding why he asked this, but still affirmed. If I give Aunt Fubuki the family head business card as a gift, do you think she will be happy? Kurosawa Hikaru asked again after getting this affirmation. After the explanation just now, he probably understood the actual value of the family head business card. 100 billion yen, it's really exaggerated, To be frank, ordinary people will become rich overnight if they get such a business card. It should be, the value of the family head business card is actually more than 100 billion yen, it is extremely rare, you want to give it to my mother. Shifunjayuan Mirai responded subconsciously, and then reacted, very surprised. I never wanted to have a grudge with Aunt Fubuki, it's better to say that I really want to have a good relationship with her, after all, she is my mother-in-law. But I have no idea how to please her. Kurosawa Hikaru smiled lightly in the face of her shock. When he met the Shifunjayuan couple before, his strong attitude at that time was helpless. Because he was in love with Mirai, it directly affected the interests of Shifunjayuan Fubuki, that was a confrontation in position, and finally it was a quarrel. However, there are no eternal enemies, only eternal interests. All smart people understand this truth. She will be very happy, absolutely very happy. When Shifunjayuan Mirai heard his idea, he was stunned and his thoughts were flying. Her relationship with her mother was not harmonious, and it could be said that there was very little affection. For her mother, she was just a capital that could make her the absolute protagonist in social occasions and let her be flattered. After all, her carefully cultivated daughter was very outstanding, very beautiful, and her status was even more prominent. If she had a good relationship with her, it might increase the success rate of marriage. However, sooner or later, she would get married. When that day came, her mother would lose a treasure that was worth showing off and relying on. By then, her mother might still be the protagonist in various social occasions, such as upper-class dances and ladies' afternoon tea. After all, she was the first wife of the first heir of the Shifunjayuan family, but it was still different from now. That's good. Kurosawa Hikaru was relieved when he saw her reaction. But is this really good? Is it worth it? After being excited, Shifunjayuan Mirai calmed down again. The more important the matter is, the more you should keep calm and avoid emotionality. If I go to the beach with you just for this business card, it may be a waste of talent. But if I can please Aunt Fubuki and let you go free in the future, it will be worth it. When Kurosawa Hikaru was thinking about this matter just now, he found the answer. Ninomiya Chizuru's parents may be sophisticated egoists, or even snobbish, but they are nothing compared to Mirai's mother. Because he felt it after just one meeting, Ninomiya and his wife's love for Chizuru is very selfless, while Shifunjayuan and his wife's love for their daughter is very rare. For rich people, things that cannot be bought with money are always the best, and the head of the family business card in his hand is a priceless treasure. If you give the family head business card to my mother, you will be gone. The role of the family head business card is actually far more than just 100 billion yen. It can help you find the Shifunjayuan family as a backer at a critical moment. Even more, even if you never call, just show this business card to those who know the business, they will treat you with courtesy, because you are a VIP of the Shifunjayuan family. Shifunjayuan Mirai was very moved when he heard this, but he still kept calm and reminded him. You can find a backer at a critical moment and let those big shots treat you with courtesy, and then what? Kurosawa Mitsuru saw that she was obviously very moved, but still restrained her behavior, and was unmoved by such sober words. Then, Shifunjayuan Mirai was stunned when he heard this. 100 billion or let the big shots treat me with courtesy, those are not what I want. What I want is to walk out of this room with you and go to various places. Kurosawa Mitsuru's hand under the table suddenly held her soft and boneless jade hand, pulled it and put it on the table. He liked Mirai, never for her wealth, but to be with her. Even though a year had passed, he still remembered the first time he saw Shifunjayuan Mirai, and the feeling of being amazed by her stunning figure. He still remembered the cute look of Shifunjayuan Mirai shaking hands with him after he had managed to keep the appointment at the Chasing Wind Dojo. It will be seen. The heartwarming handshake under the table was placed on the table, and Shifunjayuan Mirai panicked and twitched her arms, trying to break free. Mirai, as long as I can rescue you from your mother's clutches, I will find a way to get you 2 business cards, not to mention one. But even though she is a Kyoto practitioner, and her arm and grip strength are stronger than ordinary people, she is still weak in front of Kurosawa Hikaru. Shifunjayuan Mirai felt his powerful strength, raised her eyes to meet his unwavering eyes, and her heart was moved. I want to walk slowly on the beach with you, I want to go hiking with you, go skiing with you, and do many, many things. Do you want to go with me? Seeing her moved, Kurosawa Hikaru leaned forward and whispered close to her. Think. Listening to his deep voice, but speaking words that were gentle to the bone, Shifunjayuan Mirai's cherry lips moved slightly, spitting out a word, and his face and ears turned red. For women, the most beautiful words of love are never vulgar expressions such as I love you or I like you, but together. The more suppressed she is, the more she wants to explode. There are so many things she wants to do with Agwang, and there are many things she can't even say out loud. I'll call Aunt Fubuki later, ask her to meet, and give her the business card of the family leader. Seeing her shy and cute look, Kurosawa Hikaru smiled and said immediately. Without further ado, in order to avoid long nights and many dreams, the sooner this matter is resolved, the better. What are you going to tell her? Do you want her to agree to our going to the beach? Shifunjayuan nodded slightly in the future, no longer trying to persuade him, but asked. That's such a waste. Kurosawa Hikaru shook his head. How could he say that? He knew the value of the family owner's business card, but he still wanted to give it away, but his intentions were very big. If possible, what he wants most is that he doesn't have to study so much in the future, and can hang out with friends, surf the internet, and go on dates with him like a normal girl. What should I say? Shifunjayuan is a little curious about the future. She could guess that her mother would be extremely surprised to receive a gift like the head of the family's business card. However, no matter what it is, communication is very important. Gifts of the same value will have completely different feelings and values depending on the way they are given and spoken. I haven't thought it through yet, but just leave it to me. Before that, I have to ask her to meet. Although Kurosawa Hikaru wanted to tell her, not everything could be explained clearly. That's true. Shifunjayuan thought about it in the future and nodded. No matter how much they discuss, if they don't take action, it's just talk on paper. Contact her first. Kurosawa Hikaru felt that for this matter to proceed, he needed to meet first, so he immediately took out his mobile phone from his pocket. Immediately, he opened the address book first and quickly found the name of Mrs. Shifunjayuan. He has always had the contact information of Shifunjayuan Fubuki, but he rarely contacts her. If contact is necessary, then he has basically encountered something and is unable to work and needs to take leave. Even if he hasn't graduated from college, there will be times when he can't get away from it. In addition, the future schedule cannot be static. As time goes by, there will always be additional arrangements. At this time, Mrs. Shifunjayuan will send him an email to let him rest. Better call. After thinking about it, in order to ensure success, Kurosawa Hikaru quickly made a decision and made a call directly. He used to send emails, and he was very measured and kept a safe distance. But the current matter was very important, and it was related to whether he and the future could go on a date at the beach on Sunday. Beep. With the sound of the phone dialing, Kurosawa Hikaru noticed that Mirai Shifunjin was staring at him, so he put the phone on the table and clicked the speakerphone. Not long after, the phone was connected, and a cold and polite voice rang. Mr. Kurosawa, what can I do for you? This was not Shifunjayuan Fubuki's voice, but the voice of another woman. Miss Akai, I want to say a few words to Aunt Fubuki. Is it convenient for her? However, Kurosawa Hikaru was not very surprised. He guessed that she was the maid of Mrs. Shifunjayuan and made her intention clear. Now that I think about it, it would have been impossible for someone like Mrs. to give him her phone number before. The person who had been in contact with him was basically a personal maid doing it for her. I'm afraid if he had any wild ideas in the past, such as wanting to win the favor of a rich woman, sending some ambiguous messages, or using unrelated things to contact her, he might have been fired. Please wait. The other end of the phone was silent for a while, and finally agreed. Under normal circumstances, it would be impossible to talk directly to Mrs. However, the maid also knew the identity of Kurosawa Hikaru, which was different from the ordinary tutor. Maybe the microphone was held down, and it took a few minutes before there was any movement again. It's really rare for Mr. Kurosawa to call me. Different from the maid's indifference, Sci-fi Fubuki's voice was very sexy and touching, but her words had a somewhat sinister meaning. Aunt Fubuki, good afternoon. From her tone, I could tell that she was very unwelcoming to his call. Kurosawa knew that he had offended her last time, so he didn't care, but laughed enthusiastically. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 436. As the saying goes, don't hit someone with a smiling face. If anything happens, tell me quickly. Because his attitude was too enthusiastic, Sci-fi Fubuki paused for a while, too lazy to waste time with him, and went straight to the topic. I want to give you a gift. Kurosawa Hikaru also didn't like nonsense and made his intention clear. Unnecessary. Sci-fi thought something was wrong with him, but when he heard this, he refused without hesitation. Don't you want to know what the gift is? Kurosawa's tone was very calm, neither impatient nor impatient. Do you think the gift you gave me is valuable to me? You are just a college student. Even if you have a talent for archery, it is just a talent. Even if you rent a house in Tokyo, you rely on me to give it to you. Work. Sci-fi saw that he was still quite persistent, and was very angry because he was not polite when they broke up on bad terms before. In her opinion, Kurosawa Hikaru is completely ungrateful, and she doesn't even think about who gave him such a good job back then. The hourly salary is 20,000 yen, and the work time is 6 hours, twice a week. The monthly salary is nearly 1 million, and the annual salary is tens of millions. This kind of salary is higher than many white-collar workers. As a college student, it is really lucky to have such a salary. As a result, with such a good salary, this guy also set his ambition on her daughter. He stayed dormant for more than a year, went straight to Huanglong, and accurately figured out the old man's preferences. And Chui Shui, although I don't want to argue with you, I need to clarify one thing. The money for renting the house was earned through my labor, not you gave it to me for free. Faced with her sarcasm, Kurosawa raised his eyebrows and responded. Madam is willing to let him serve as the future tutor of Sci-fi, which is indeed a kindness. After all, the salary was so generous and the environment was such a good job. If he looked around Tokyo, he might not be able to find a second job. But when working, he has always been conscientious and never slacked off. Even until now, he has not slacked off in his work and fully guaranteed future results. As for small actions such as whispering and passing notes, they do not affect the overall quality of teaching at all. It is better to say that because of the balance between work and rest, the enthusiasm for learning in the future will become higher and the teaching effect will be better. I don't want to argue with you. Is there anything else besides giving you gifts? Sci-fi heard this for a moment, then she didn't want to chat with him anymore and asked again. Are you free now? What are you doing? Anyway, I'm not interested in your gift, that's all. Finding that he couldn't say anything else, Sci-fi impatiently hung up the phone. Beep. The call was disconnected as the cell phone rang. Hang up, Ogwang, Why didn't you tell her that what you wanted to give her was the family head's business card? Seeing this scene, Sifan Marai, who had always remained silent, finally spoke up. She didn't understand that her mother wouldn't hang up the phone even if Kurosawa mentioned the business card of the family head, even if it was just 2 words. As a result, Agwang didn't mention anything until his mother hung up the phone impatiently. What's more, because of the tone of Agwang's clarification, his mother's impression of Agwang became even worse. Don't worry, this is all strategy. Realizing that she was a little anxious, Kurosawa Hikaru comforted her. Strategy. Sifan still felt that things were getting more troublesome in the future, so he calmed down when he saw his reaction was so calm. As a rich young lady, she doesn't need to trust others. Because the wall stands thousands of feet tall and strong without desire. Although there is no freedom at all, she has had enough food and clothing since she was a child, and she has not lacked anything. No matter how powerful and outstanding others are, they cannot affect her mood. But Kurosawa Hikaru was different. The bow skills he displayed were handsome and powerful, which had a great attraction for her, and he also had the talent to break conventions. If I just mentioned the family head's business card, how do you think she would react? Seeing that she was confused when she was concerned, and her smart mind was not working well when it came to matters related to her mother, Kurosawa smiled and asked. Of course she is happy. Although the family head's business card will not have much impact on her life, she has a lot of money and power. But having a family head's business card in her hand will allow her to dominate the limelight in front of her relatives and friends. And everyone knows that she doesn't need it, so they may try to get it from her, and she will be sought after. Sifan knows in the future what kind of value the business card of the family owner has to the mother. This thing is like wearing a valuable but unmarketable gemstone necklace around your neck. Its price is one thing, the key is whether it can be purchased. She's happy, and then what does she say? After talking, Kurosawa Hikaru had already understood the value of the family head's business card, and he nodded with a smile and asked again. Okay. Something like that? I don't know. Sifan Miku imitated his excitement, and then felt a little embarrassed when he laughed at him, so he stopped guessing. She wasn't very sure how her mother would react. After all, everything was just conjecture until it actually happened. First of all, she is happy, but she won't show it clearly. Because she just expressed her disdain for my gift. Even if she really wants it, as an elder or a woman, she will restrain your desire and never let me see the joke. Put aside unnecessary emotions, because if I suddenly send a big gift, she will doubt my intentions. After all, being courteous for nothing is either adultery or theft. The only connection between me and her is you. She will weigh the pros and cons, but as long as she calms down. At this point, Kurosawa Hikaru hesitated and glanced at her. She will definitely choose the head of the family card in the end, because my dating and marriage with you are things she can't interfere with. By accepting your gift, she just ignores me, and this is not necessarily a bad thing. She is responsible for my series of training. It's quite troublesome. Seeing that he was concerned about his own feelings, after sorting out the future of Sifan his ideas were already very clear. Although it was sad, she knew that her mother didn't actually care about her that much. Kurosawa Hikaru stared at her face, his big eyes looking left and right, worried about her feelings. Don't worry, so, what are you going to do next? On one side of the neon coastal area, on the open-air balcony of the luxury villa, on the snow-white lounge chair under the sun umbrella, Sifan Chawixu, wearing a black bikini and a shawl, hung up the phone with a thumb press. He handed the phone to the maid next to him. In response, the maid took it in her hand and put it in the pocket under her skirt. Even in this hot and sunny season, she was still wearing a thick maid uniform. Ah, I'm so annoyed. Go prepare the yacht. I'm going to go swimming. Lying down to bask in the sun again, Sifenu Fubuki sat up and took off his sunglasses, feeling very irritable. Originally, she went to the beach for vacation and was in a beautiful mood, but it was ruined by Kurosawa Koichi. She is the wife of Sifenjayuan. Even if she puts aside her status, she comes from a famous family and has enjoyed a life of being praised by others since she was a child. If there is any trouble, she can easily solve it. In the end, when facing Kurosawa Hikaru, she was helpless. She couldn't do anything, couldn't hit him, couldn't scold him, couldn't even order him to go down and find someone to plot against him. Because if she sends someone to deal with Kurosawa Hikaru ruthlessly, once the old man finds out, the consequences will be disastrous. This Kurosawa Hikaru, don't let her take the chance. As long as he dares to make a mistake, she will have reasonable grounds to fire him from his job as a tutor. Even if she does this, it won't affect Kurosawa Hikaru's marriage to her daughter, but it will make her feel bad. Yes. Upon hearing this order, the maid lowered her head and responded, then left. What a weirdo. It's so hot to look at. Sifenjayuan Chawixu watched her back and walked into the house. Because she had to wait for a while, she lay down again and put on her sunglasses, and couldn't help but mutter to herself. She really couldn't understand the maid of the Akai family. Marrying into the Sifenjayuan family is not as good as others say, because in this big family, there are so many rules. Especially this maid, like a human camera, follows her all day long. Although it is convenient in many ways, it also makes her feel uneasy. Are you ready? Not long after, Sifenu Fubuki heard the maid coming back and asked. I've ordered you to sail down, ma'am. Mr. Kurosawa has sent an email. Please read it. The personal maid gave priority to completing the master's orders and requirements, and added. No, I'm not interested in his gift. If he calls me in the future, don't tell me. I don't want to hear his name again. Sifenjayuan Chawixu waved her hand, stood up and planned to take the yacht out to sea for a swim. She was really not interested in Kurosawa Hikaru's gift, and even if she was interested, she wouldn't bother to accept it. When she received the call just now and learned about her arrival, she actually guessed what Hikari Kurosawa had planned. Kurosawa Hikaru wants to please her and make her turn a blind eye to the mistakes they made. However, when her husband helped Mitsuru Kurosawa, an outsider, to lose face in front of her daughter, it was not so easy to get angry, and no gift could be used. Mr. Kurosawa mentioned the family head's business card in the email. The maid saw that she was annoyed when she heard her name. She was silent for a few seconds and then spoke to remind her. As the maid of the Akai family, she knew what the head of the family's business card meant. Sifenu Fubuki, who was about to walk into the house and go downstairs, stopped in his tracks and looked back at the maid, wondering if he had heard wrongly. In response, the maid just handed the phone over to her. No need to receive it in hand, Sifenjayuan Fubuki saw it, the sender, Kurosawa Hikaru's email content. Aren't you also interested in the business card of the head of the family? He wants to give me the family head's business card. Sifenu Chawixu was shocked when she saw such content. I don't know. Based on the content of the email, it should mean this. The maid remained expressionless and expressed her personal opinion on this question. Sifenjayuan Fubuki hesitated for a few seconds, took the phone, looked at the words family head's business card on the phone, and fell into silence. Although she thought that any gift would be useless, the business card of the head of the household was still somewhat useful. She has been married into the Sifenjayuan family for so many years, and is very familiar with the business card of the family head. Since the establishment of the Sifenjayuan family, only a very small number of the business cards of the family owner have been issued. During the reign of each family head, a maximum of 3 cards can be issued, and these cannot be issued casually. There are 2 rules for issuing them. The first is to give to people who have life-saving kindness but cannot repay it. The second type is given to outstanding people with great potential and strong strength. The attitude shown is that the Sifenjayuan family wants to be friends with you, and you are the honored guest of the Sifenjayuan family. So far, only one person has used this business card. As for the other business card holders, each of them is a famous person. Even powerful people attach great importance to the business card of the head of the Sifenjayuan family, and keep it as a treasure at the bottom of the box. Because life-saving grace does not come often, the holder of this business card can also be understood as an outstanding person certified by the Sifenjayuan family, and honor is more important than it. For powerful people, money is nothing more than personal possessions, and reputation is more valuable. Before she could take action, her phone suddenly vibrated, sounded a ringtone, and received a new email. Sender, Hikaru Kurosawa. I'm teaching the future. I wonder when you will be free. I want to talk to you. Seeing such a message, Sifenjayuan Chiwixu was silent for a long time, and then he replied with a click of his fingers. Get ready to go back to Tokyo. I'm going to change clothes. After replying, Sifenuen Fubuki handed her the phone. Yes. The maid of the Akai family was not surprised by her decision and lowered her head in response. In the study room on the top floor of a luxury apartment in central Tokyo. Sender Mrs. Sifenjayuan. I will have dinner with her at 7 o'clock tonight. We're going to meet tonight, so soon. Seeing this reply, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help but feel surprised. According to his opinion, he originally thought that Sifenjayuan Chiwixu would be reserved and wait a few days before meeting again. He also hoped that it would be best before Sunday. This shows that she really wants the family head's business card. So far, no one in the direct or collateral line of the Sifenjayuan family has received the family head's business card. Seeing this situation in the future, Sifenjayuan was very excited. Under the desk, her long legs that could not be concealed by the black skirt were pressed together, her toes were clasped tightly, and her beautiful white feet were swaying with slippers. She was not surprised at all by this result. Women have an almost fanatical pursuit of limited edition, rare, and things that others cannot get. Moreover, my mother's vanity is very strong. She was often taken to various social occasions in the past. She has seen this countless times. That is, when she entered the preparation stage, which is a more important period, at her father's request, her mother. That's why I stopped taking her everywhere to show off. She saw the hope of going to the beach. Giving the business card of the head of the family to her mother was something she had never thought of before. If it's 7 o'clock tonight, then I have to go home first. Kurosawa Hikaru didn't know whether to be happy or how to react to the situation. He just said, "Why? I left the business card of the head of the family at home. Didn't you take it with you?" "No. Why am I carrying gold around? That's 100 billion. If you put it at home, wouldn't you be afraid of being stolen? This thing doesn't recognize people. Each business card has a separate phone number corresponding to the reception. It only recognizes the business card." When Sifenjayuan heard this in the future, he couldn't hold back and couldn't believe it. This kind of thing should either be carried with you or placed in a highly secure vault. Based on the information she knew, Kurosawa's house was a mid-range apartment. It didn't even have an access card, so anyone could come and go freely. Sayaka Akai, who was always standing guard at the back, was numb and had questions all over her head. Facing their shocked looks, Kurosawa was speechless and could only smile awkwardly. To a certain extent, Mirai is right. He left 100 billion yen at home. Go back and get it quickly. Seeing that he didn't take the patriarch's business card seriously at all, Sifenjayuan future didn't know whether to call him big-hearted or careless. He could only say, "Such an important treasure can be safely placed at home. I really don't know what is worth worrying about." Good. Kurosawa Hikaru nodded, realizing the seriousness of the problem, and he had to get this thing in hand quickly. If this thing was really stolen and Aunt Fubuki came over in the evening and he couldn't get it out, that would be troublesome. Kurosawa Hikaru left the apartment and returned home in a taxi not long after. Although Neon's taxi is very expensive, he doesn't mind spending more money to take a taxi if necessary. What's more, he has become a big star now, and the little money for a taxi is not worth the pain. Taking the elevator upstairs, taking out the key and opening the door, Kurosawa took off his shoes and went straight to the bedroom. Well. As soon as he opened the bedroom door, the cool air from the air conditioner hit his face. As soon as Kurosawa Hikaru took a few steps, a head lifted up from the bed. "Brother Guang, why are you back?" Ichi-nose Yuki rested on the bed with one hand, sat up and rubbed his eyes with his hands. He was very confused when he saw Kurosawa Hikaru. "Why are you sleeping here when you come back to get your things?" Kurosawa Hikaru was a little surprised to see that she was still there. Just before he left for his part-time job, Xiao Yuki walked with him to the door of the apartment to say goodbye. "Because I want to hold your quilt and sleep for a while, I want to sleep until 6 o'clock and then go home for dinner." Yuki Ichi-nose blushed a little at this question. Brother Guang gave her the spare key. After Brother Guang left, she felt a little sleepy because she didn't sleep enough last night, so she ran back and slept secretly. As a result, the first time she sneaked back, she was hit by Brother Guang. "Then you can sleep a little longer, sweet dreams." Kurosawa Hikaru walked to the closet, opened it, stood on tiptoes, and fumbled around in the top corner a few times. Then he touched something and pulled it with his hand. He breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the business card of the owner of the house in his hand. Also coaxing her. Fortunately, nothing unexpected happened. With such a precious treasure at home, Yuki secretly slept in his room. It would be scary to think about a thief trying to break in. "Brother Guang, give me a hug." Seeing that he didn't blame herself, Ichi-nose Yuki mustered up the courage to open her arms to him. "Kiss me, I have something else to do, so I'll leave first." Seeing this action, Kurosawa Hikaru walked over and kissed her soft lips gently, smoothed her somewhat messy bangs with his hands, and said softly, "He will go back to find the future later and meet his mother-in-law in the evening. Little Yuki's body smells super fragrant. If he hugs her, it might smell like perfume." Yuki Ichi-nose felt his favor and nodded obediently. "Go on to sleep, I accidentally woke you up, I'm sorry." Seeing her healing look, Kurosawa left a very gentle word and turned around to leave. But before he could walk out, he was stopped by Xiao Yuki. "Brother Guang, I'm sorry for sneaking into your house to sleep." "Why are you apologizing? When I gave you the spare key before, it meant that you were the mistress of this house. You can't be said to be secretly sleeping on this bed." Kurosawa Hikaru turned around and saw her cute look on the bed hugging his quilt, lowering her head feeling guilty, and shook her head. "When I suddenly came home and saw my girlfriend lying on the bed, I was actually quite surprised. It felt like I had a little wife at home." "Mistress." Hearing this name and identity, Ichi-nose Yuki was stunned for a moment, and an uncontrollable smile appeared on his lips. She didn't even know that Brother Guang had this intention when he gave her the spare key. "Bye-bye." Seeing her silly and happy look, Kurosawa Hikaru was also happy and waved gently to her. "Bye-bye." Yuki Ichi-nose smiled and waved goodbye to him. As for the things that Brother Guang came home to get, she didn't care. She thought they were related to the future of Siphon Jiyuan. After helping her close the bedroom door, Kurosawa Hikaru took the mobile phone and sent a message to Siphon Jiyuan Mirai to explain that he had got it. Before he could go far, he vaguely heard an excited sigh coming from the bedroom. "Mistress. It's so easy to be satisfied." Realizing that Xiao Yuki was happy for what he said, Kurosawa Hikaru shook his head with a funny sigh and set off again. Go watch the finals. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 437. A luxury apartment in the city center, this will be one of Shifunji-Yuan's future residences in Tokyo. In fact, there are many rooms here, but usually, only Shifunjin Mirai and Akai Sayaka, a master and a servant, spend the night here. Dinner is ready. There was a knock on the door of the study room. Sayaka Akai opened the door and said to the two people in front of the desk. Good. Kurosawa Hikaru, who was in class, nodded slightly when he heard the summons and glanced at the clock on the wall. The time happened to be 7 p.m., which was different from the usual dinner time, but it was the agreed time. Let's go. Standing up, Kurosawa Hikaru smiled when he noticed that Shifunjin Mirai had not moved yet, as if he was a little nervous. Sifenuen raised his head and glanced at him in the future. Thinking that he was still there, he nodded slightly and stood up. Walking out of the study, Kurosawa Hikaru followed in the footsteps of Sayaka Akai. Soon, he saw someone sitting in front of the dining table. That was a young woman with stunning appearance and full of aura, and she was Fuxio from Shifunji-Yuan. Behind him, the maid of the Akai family was waiting expressionlessly, obeying all instructions at any time. The role of being the first to take the lead will take more control in the process of contacting people. Aunt Fubuki, good evening. Seeing this scene, Kurosawa Hikaru actively and calmly walked forward. Good evening. Shifunji-Yuan Fubuki watched the two of them walk out of the study, with a pair of beautiful eyes staring at Kurosawa Hikaru. When she saw him coming, a smile appeared on her calm face. This meeting was not for the purpose of arguing or confrontation. She had only one purpose in taking the position in advance, which was to prevent herself from being too passive. Today's dinner was so sumptuous. Kurosawa Hikaru came to the dining table, looked at the dishes on the table, and found an empty seat not far away to sit down. The meal tonight was really luxurious. Maybe Akai Sayaka knew that Madam was coming and cooked more dishes. Mom. Compared with her naturalness, Shifunji-Yuan Mirai does not look like the owner of this family, and is a bit reserved. Let's have dinner. Shifunji-Yuan Chiwixu slightly nodded and motioned for her to sit down. The bigger the family, the more rules there are. The Shifunji-Yuan family's family rules are strict and terrifying, and their educational requirements for their children are almost perverted. No matter how naughty your character is, or you are in a rebellious stage, you must be honest in front of family rules and elders. There is absolutely no possibility of being disrespectful or disrespectful. Dinner started, and all three of them were eating. Whether it is Shifunji-Yuan Fubuki or Shifunji-Yuan Mirai, they seem to have many rules when it comes to dining and eat very elegantly. In contrast, even though Kurosawa Hikaru has many skills, he has no related skills such as dining etiquette. He eats very casually. He directly took a large lobster, removed the tail and took a big bite. High-end ingredients don't even require good cooking techniques. They only need simple processing to achieve color, freshness, and fragrance. It's really depressing. Although it was a delicious meal, Kurosawa Hikaru was not very happy with it because the atmosphere of the dinner was so dull that he could not taste the food. In fact, he had known for a long time that the relationship between mother and daughter was not good. But this time when we had dinner together, the invisible but actual gap between mother and daughter seemed to materialize. Obviously dinner is supposed to be a family meal together, but there is no harmonious atmosphere. Instead, it is silent. He didn't quite understand the dining etiquette of nobles, but if what he saw on TV was correct, Western nobles would chat when they had dinner together. In other words, the fundamental reason why tonight's dinner table is so boring is that the relationship between mother and daughter is so bad. The meat is juicy, sweet, and tender, and today's lobster is so delicious. After thinking about it, Kurosawa swallowed a piece of tail meat of a large lobster and praised it. As soon as he spoke, the mother and daughter at the dinner table looked at him with attracted eyes. Did I said wrong thing? Breaking the silence at the dinner table, Kurosawa Hikaru faced the two people's gazes and said puzzledly. To be fair, even with his cooking skills, he still thought the lobster tail meat he just ate was delicious. As a professional maid, Sayaka Akai is taught by famous teachers, and her cooking skills are very good, which is not much inferior to his ordinary cooking. In this case, he quite likes the addition of lobster, a rare ingredient that is different from home-cooked food. After all, he was not thick-skinned before. Every time Akai Sayaka asked him what he wanted to eat, he always asked for a rice bowl. No, it's best if you like nature. Saifanjayuan Chawixia shook her head and looked at the big lobster in front of her. She had not eaten it yet because she had no appetite just looking at it. Even before marrying into the Saifanjayuan family, she came from a famous family and had been tired of eating all kinds of delicacies since she was a child. The meat was juicy, sweet, and tender, and there was an expression of enjoyment that she hadn't felt in an unknown amount of time. The life of a rich person is actually very boring, because it is bound by various rules, and because money can buy anything, she doesn't even know what she is pursuing. She made a special flight back to Tokyo today because Kurosawa Hikaru mentioned the business card of the family head. This rare treasure really attracted her. It's really delicious. Shifunjayuan Mirai has long been tired of eating this so-called luxurious meal, but maybe it was Kurosawa's expression and comments that made her take the big lobster on the ice tray, cut off a piece of lobster meat, and dip it in wasabi and soy sauce. He took a small bite. Just as Kurosawa said, the meat is elastic, sweet, tender. And Fubuki, don't you like lobster? Finally breaking the silence on the table, Kurosawa Hikaru looked at her intact lobster, which had not yet used her chopsticks, and spoke. It's not about liking it, it's just that after eating too much, I got used to it. Saifanjayuan Chawixia shook his head slightly. In other words, are you tired of eating? Kurosawa Hikaru saw the look of fatigue on her beautiful face and asked again. What does a truly rich person look like? It's not because of her noble temperament or luxurious clothes, but because her face reveals a sense of weariness, as if everything in the world is unattractive to her. He had this feeling when he first met Sifenu Fubuki, he also had a similar feeling when he saw the future. The luxury cars, mansions, gold, and silver treasures that ordinary people pursue have long lost their appeal to them. They are emotionally calm, neither arrogant nor impetuous, and neither fight nor grab. However, the current future has been awakened by him, relying on freedom and happiness. You can say that. Saifanjayuan Fubuki didn't understand why he asked such a question. He glanced at the delicate and beautiful lobster on the ice tray and nodded. The tail of the big lobster has been processed, and the carapace has been removed. It is as white as milk and the meat is like fiber. The tail meat is condensed together. It looks very beautiful on the crushed ice that reflects the light under the light. Then can you give me your big lobster? Kurosawa Hikaru got her reply and asked again. Can. Saifanjayuan Chawixia did not hesitate to make this request. To her, such large lobsters have no value at all because they can be bought with money and they can have as many as they want. To say its value is nothing more than a quantifiable number. Then I won't be polite. With her consent, Kurosawa stood up decisively, walked to her side and stretched out his hand to pick up the ice tray containing the lobster. His movements were very calm and he took the big lobster away immediately. Seeing him slowly taking away the big lobster in front of her, Saifanjayuan Fubuki didn't even raise her eyelids, she just lowered her head to eat her dinner. Well, that's pretty good. It's so delicious. Did Ms. Sayaka cook this lobster? It was well done. Kurosawa Hikaru returned to his seat and started eating lobster, making a lot of noise. Unlike before, he started to dismantle the lobster tail with a knife, then picked it up with chopsticks and dipped it in the sauce. For example, soy sauce, mustard, sprinkle with black pepper, sea salt, eat in different ways, even without any grace or etiquette at all, and you will lick your fingers. But no matter how he ate, he always had a smile on his face and compliments from time to time. Is it really so delicious? Seeing him attracted by the delicious food, eating casually but extremely delicious, Saifunjayuan Chiwixu's heartstrings couldn't help but have strange fluctuations. The way Kurosawa was eating the lobster was so delicious that she had the illusion that the lobster Akai Sayaka cooked tonight was so delicious. However, she wanted to know what it tasted like, but it was impossible, because her big lobster had already been taken away. As for asking to come back, that was impossible for her. It's tender and crispy, you can try it in the future. This kabayaki eel is good, it melts in your mouth, especially the skin is very fragrant. Soon, Kurosawa Hikaru finished 2 large lobsters and picked up a piece of cut eel. After eating, his eyes lit up. He ate fiercely and invited them at the same time. Good. Saifunjayuan will still eat lobster tails in the future. She eats them very slowly because she has to pay attention to etiquette and pursue a sense of high-end and elegance. However, because of his influence, she also has a big appetite. And Fubuki. Not long after, Kurosawa Hikaru finished eating the eel and looked at Shifun Fubuki aside. Is there a problem? Saifunjayuan Fubuki was still waiting for him to give him a gift, and responded to the conversation. Eels, are you tired of eating them? Kurosawa's eyes flickered and he looked at the kabayaki eel that was placed in front of her without even using his chopsticks. Tired of eating? When Saifunjayuan Chiwixu heard this, she understood what he was thinking and was a little surprised. He wants it again? Do you have such a big appetite? Large lobster tail, because the quality of the ingredients is very good, the weight of the tail meat is about 300-500 g. This amount is very filling, let alone 2. Not only that, he also ate eels. Although eels are usually small, not whole, but the best parts, kabayaki is sweet and will make you tired if you eat too much. Then can you give me your eel? After getting her answer, Kurosawa Hikaru asked again. Can. Saifunjayuan Chiwixu thought for a while and agreed. As a neon person, she has long been tired of all kinds of high-end Japanese cuisine. Very good. Help him carry it over. This time, before he could stand up and come over, Saifunjayuan Chiwixu gave an order. Yes. The maid who was waiting nearby took action immediately after hearing this order. It's so delicious. Kurosawa waited until she delivered it and couldn't wait to start. With the blessing of master-level acting skills, although his eating appearance is casual and there are no rules of dining etiquette, the food he eats is so delicious that it will not be offensive at all. Not long after, Kurosawa Hikaru finished the entire plate, then brought over a steak and started eating. As expected, he started to feel delicious again and ate very quickly. Finally, his eyes turned to the dishes in front of Sifenu and Fubuki, the untouched steak. And Fubuki, what do you think of steak? Tired of eating, do you want it? Think. Bring it to him. After receiving the affirmation, Sifenu and Fubuki ordered. Why doesn't she follow the rules? Kurosawa Hikaru, who had thought that she would protect the food this time, was worried about the outcome, but when he saw the maid taking action, he suddenly felt a little worried. In fact, the reason why he enjoyed so much just now was all due to his acting skills. After all, even if Akai Sayaka's cooking skills are very high, they are not so good that even he can eat them deliciously. Whether it was lobster, eel, or steak, he had already eaten it, and quite often, because every time he ate with brother Shinichi, it was such a high-end meal. Why he did this was because he wanted to stimulate the loss aversion psychology of Shifunjayuan Fubuki, that is, human nature is more afraid of losing than gaining. First, by taking away her food, she stimulated this aspect of her psychology, and then made her realize the importance of her daughter, thus making the relationship between mother and daughter better. At the same time, the steak was brought to him, and Kurosawa could only continue eating. Fortunately, he does have a huge appetite, otherwise he would be starved to death. The food looks pretty cute. Shifunjayuan Fubuki saw him eating again. While sighing in his heart, he didn't forget to eat something. Although she hated this guy, she found that she was not very disgusted when eating with Kurosawa Hikaru. Under his influence, today's dinner even made her want to eat more. Maybe it was because his taste was so delicious that it made her feel interesting and fresh. As for the delicious food being taken away, she not only had no idea of protecting the food, but was happy to let him take more and wanted to eat more. Kurosawa Hikaru was performing an eating performance, and he always felt that the way she looked at him was strange. It was hard to describe, and it made a woman's heart ache. However, his intuition told him that today's dinner went well, and Fubuki was in a good mood. Unlike the initial dullness, the dinner ended in a pleasant and relaxed atmosphere. Although there are 2 maids tonight, Sayaka Akai is in charge of clearing the table. After eating and drinking, they moved to the sofa in the living room and sat down. Now that we're full, let's talk about business. Rich people pay attention to efficiency when doing things. After enjoying the pleasant dinner, Shifunyu and Fubuki did not forget the purpose of this time. What's the matter? Hearing this, Kurosawa Hikaru asked. Don't you want to talk to me? Seeing him pretending to be dumbfounded, Shifunjayuan Chiwixu's mood suddenly dropped. I took a special flight back to Tokyo and came here not just to have dinner with them. Yes, I want to talk to you, but not for anything serious. Kurosawa Hikaru nodded to confirm the matter and explained. Shifunjayuan Chiwixu looked at him and couldn't figure out what he was thinking. And I want to give you a gift, please accept it? Seeing her silence, Kurosawa Hikaru thought for a moment, then put his hand into his pocket, took out something, put it on the table, and gently waved it in front of her with his hand. It was a business card made of pure gold with a series of numbers engraved on it. Shifunjayuan Chiwixu just took one look and was sure that this was the family head's business card. Although she had never seen the real thing, she had already known the characteristics of this thing. If you have any requirements, tell me. Seeing this great gift, Shifunyu and Fubuki didn't move or reach out to take it, but asked. The world of adults is about courtesy and exchange of benefits. This guy suddenly wanted to give him a gift, and he definitely had an agenda. In fact, she could probably guess what Kurosawa's purpose was in giving her a gift. I have no request, I just want to give you the business card of the head of the family. In response, Kurosawa Hikaru shook his head. There is no requirement, are you sure? Shifunyu and Fubuki did not question this statement, but confirmed it. This was a trick. As long as Kurosawa Hikaru dared to confirm, she would accept the gift without any scruples. Although the communication between people is mostly bound by interests, it also pays attention to the spirit of contract, even if it is a verbal contract. I am sure. Kurosawa Hikaru nodded, confirming this. Okay, then I'll accept it. After receiving his verbal approval, Shifunjayuan Chiwixu's body finally moved, and he stretched out his hand to pick up the family head's business card. There was no obstruction or verbal resistance, she got it easily. What on earth is he planning? Although he was happy that he got it, Shifunjayuan Fubuki still kept calm and looked at Kurosawa Hikaru on the sofa opposite with doubts. There is no way this guy doesn't know the value of the head of the family's business card. Even if he doesn't know, he will definitely be told in the future. After all, the family head's business card is very rare, and so far, there are very few holders in the world. Its value is not limited to simply being made of pure gold, but the meaning it contains. When a thing is given meaning, its value will far exceed its physical value. Facing her suspicion, Kurosawa Hikaru did not dodge, but just looked at her with a smile. It's a bit late. Since you didn't ask for it, I'll go back. Being stared at by him, Sifenu and Fubuki always felt weird and decided to go first. As long as she walks out of this door, this business card of the head of the family will completely fall into her hands, and Kurosawa Hikaru will never find her and ask her for anything. Are you leaving so soon? Kurosawa Hikaru said in surprise when he saw her leaving. Today's schedule is quite busy, so I'm a little sleepy. Sifenjayuan Chawixu nodded slightly and explained. In that case, why not spend the night here? There are many rooms here. That's not necessary. The bed here is too small and I'm not used to it. Faced with his attempts to stay, how could Sifenjayuan Chawixu do as he wished, and break up with him first? Then why don't you sit down for a while? I want to talk to you some more. I have something else to do, maybe next time. In response to his successive attempts to stay, Sifenu and Fubuki stood up and refuted. No matter what Kurosawa's intentions are, as soon as she leaves this house, the business card of the head of the house belongs to her. After that, she no longer cared about Kurosawa Hikaru's obstruction and started walking. And Fubuki, wait a moment. Before she could go far, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help but stood up and wanted to stop her. However, facing his approach, the personal maid stopped in front of him. This is the rule of the Akai family. Women of the Shifunjayuan family are not allowed to come within 1 meter of the opposite sex without permission. I'm sleepy, Mr. Kurosawa. If you have anything to do, please wait until next time. Seeing him being stopped by the maid, Sifenjayuan Chawixu raised her lips slightly and said like a winner. With the owner's business card in her hand, she didn't want to stay here for a long time. However, before she could finish laughing, she saw the maid being grabbed by Hikaru Kurosawa with both hands, lifted up directly, and walked over step by step. The maid, who has experienced many battles and is proficient in fighting skills, is a big living person. In front of Kurosawa Hikaru, she is as light as a model. And Fubuki, if you have time next time, let's have dinner together. Grabbing the maid with both hands, lifting her up and walking forward step by step, Kurosawa Hikaru said with a smile. Seeing his terrifying strength, Sifenu Chawixu's body became a little stiff and she couldn't laugh anymore, so she nodded. That's it, see you next time. After receiving her answer, Kurosawa put the maid down and smiled enthusiastically. See you next time. Sifenu and Fubuki was not happy at all when faced with his enthusiasm, and left after responding. The elevator stayed on this floor, and when pressed, it opened the door. A master and a servant rode the elevator, and as the elevator door closed, they officially left. Madam, he is very strong. In the elevator, the maid was still frightened by what had just happened. She pulled up her long sleeves with her hands. There was a clearly visible purple-blue fingerprint on her white arm. This was the trace left behind when she was grabbed and lifted by Kurosawa Hikaru just now. With such terrifying power, she didn't even have the strength to backhand. I can tell. Seeing this scene, Sifenjayuan Chawixu held the family head's business card in her hand and was also frightened. She knew very well the fighting power of a maid. 5 grown men could not survive even 10 seconds in front of a maid, and they would be knocked down in one encounter. Let's go. In the apartment, Kurosawa Hikaru saw the elevator door closing and said to himself. Is it really okay not to ask for anything? The mother finally left. Sifenjayuan was relieved in the future, but also worried. She didn't know if this was the best outcome. It's better not to make a request than to make a request. It's impossible for her to feel at ease when she takes away the family head's business card for nothing. Although she is passive, the debt of gratitude is the hardest to repay. Even if I make a mistake in the future, she will weigh it herself. However, Kurosawa Hikaru was not worried, smiled, and comforted him. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 438. It was still early and they returned to the study. Although sitting in the living room is fine, this place is more familiar and safer. What if my mother doesn't admit it? And you said you didn't ask for anything, you just gave her a gift. Sitting down again, Saifunjayuan Mirai was still worried about the result just now. A treasure as precious as the head of the house's business card was given away like this, but there was no actual return in return. I did say it was for her. What do you think she would do to prevent me from making big demands in the future? Kurosawa Hikaru saw that she was confused and asked. Pretend this never happened. Saifunjayuan thought about it in the future and said what she thought was the worst outcome. She is a person with a good face, not a shameless character. In other words, when she met me, she couldn't pretend that this never happened. She didn't want to agree to my request, and she wanted this a gift. The best thing to do is to avoid me. Hearing this answer, Kurosawa Hikaru glanced sideways at her, shook his head and explained. From this point of view, Mirai's understanding of her mother is exactly the same as Chizuru's view of her parents. As daughters, their parents are too special in their eyes, even demonized. Putting aside her identity as a mother, Sifenu Fubuki is actually not much different from an ordinary woman. After all, no matter how noble her status is, she is still a human being. Avoiding you. Saifunjayuan was stunned for a moment in the future, and his mind suddenly became active, as if he had caught some clue. What is the most common method used by Laolai? In the face of debt collection calls, text messages, and even door-blocking behaviors, turn a blind eye and hide where the creditor cannot find you. Under normal circumstances, when facing creditors, unless they are determined to repay their debts, otherwise they will take measures to avoid them whenever possible. In this matter, the mother is not a deadbeat, but the nature is similar. Is this your purpose? While thinking about it, Saifunjayuan's future brightened up and he found the answer. That's pretty much it. I'm not sure how long she will hide, but before she takes the initiative to contact us, as long as I don't go too far, she won't care what I do. Kurosawa Hikaru saw that she finally understood and smiled. Using a business card of the head of the family in exchange for freedom in the next period of time, this is his purpose. It is unrealistic to want to exchange this for absolute freedom in the future, for example, so that she does not have to study or cultivate various talents, because the elite education of the Saifunjayuan family is very strict. However, there is actually only one future supervisor, and that is Sifenu Fubuki. As for her father and her grandfather, they are completely indifferent to her schedule. For example, if you take me to the beach, she won't care. With the sudden enlightenment, Saifunjayuan completely understood his purpose in the future. Maybe it was because she couldn't get the agreement, but because of the gift-giving, my mother could no longer tolerate a grain of sand in her eyes. Not only that, I can also take you to see movies, go to the amusement park, and go shopping, as long as I send you home at night and don't spend the night with you outside. Don't do it too often and don't exceed her tolerance limit. It's hard for her to say anything. Kurosawa raised the corner of his mouth and reminded. Wow! When Saifunjayuan saw the cake he drew for her in the future, her heartbeat couldn't stop accelerating, and her face was filled with uncontrollable excitement. In fact, what she wants most is to go to various places with Kurosawa Hikaru and have ordinary dates. Now you can go to the beach with me safely, right? Seeing her elated look, Kurosawa Hikaru was very satisfied with the result. He boldly imagined using the business card of the head of the family in exchange for absolute freedom in the future, but later he gave up the idea. He wanted to buy his future from Aunt Chui Shui with just a business card of the head of the family. This was very unrealistic. Sifenuen nodded in the future. The fundamental reason why she was worried and timid was that the last time Aguang met her mother, she was unhappy. Women are very vindictive. At that time, the mother was not easy to get angry because of the father's presence, but it was different after the separation. She calmed down and thought about it before. If she and Kurosawa Hikaru really eloped to the beach, even if they really went to the beach and had a lot of fun, their mother would definitely settle the scores after they came back. But things are different now. Aguang gave a big gift unconditionally. As the saying goes, eating people is soft-spoken and taking advantage of others is short-handed. As long as what they do is not too excessive, their mother will turn a blind eye. Go to the beach. Taking out the business card of the owner of the family from the bottom of the box, her worries were finally put to rest. Kurosawa looked at her happy look and thought about her date in a few days, and couldn't help but move his eyes downwards. Waiting until Sunday, he will be able to unlock the swimsuit limited edition of Shifunjin Mirai. This was their first date in a place other than the two fixed venues, the apartment study room and the wind-chasing dojo. He was looking forward to what would happen. Seeing her beautiful legs with cold white skin under her black dress, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help but call out the corresponding task in his heart. Future summertime with Sifenjayuan. Mission goal: meet at the beach, be alone for an hour, carry her on your back and run on the beach at sunset, kiss when the fireworks are blooming to their most brilliant moment. Task duration: 30 days. Task funds: entry-level driving, entry-level swimming, entry-level massage, experience card. Task rewards: entry-level driving, entry-level swimming, entry-level massage, permanent. What will happen if I spend an hour alone with Mirai? Because the date to the beach has been completely confirmed, on this Sunday, Kurosawa Hikaru saw the task target again and his attention was a little distracted. In his ears, the words that Mirai said in his ear when the half-hour ensemble ended last time rang: next time if there is an hour, let's do something more fun. The task goal of the date can be understood as the needs and expectations that girls have not noticed. In fact, many people don't know what they are pursuing and what they want. It's just that Mirai is an exception. Because she can easily get most of the things, she can exclude these things and determine her pursuit. The future wants to spend an hour alone with him and do something more fun, he is no exception. You know, the most heart-pounding moment of a date between a man and a woman is when the two are alone. The last time they played together at the Chasing Wind Dojo, it was only half an hour. Excluding the time they played a few songs together, the actual time they spent alone together was very short. But because of this, that date still makes his heart beat faster when he thinks back to it. Have you discussed it with her? Shifunjayuan Mirai noticed that he was staring at her legs and asked quietly. Unlike ordinary girls, because she had received various courses since she was a child, especially charm courses, she knew very well what boys liked. She was tall and had a pair of long legs, so it was normal for a Guang to like her. Who? Kurosawa Hikari came back to his senses and didn't understand what he meant. Confused about this, Shifunjayuan Mirai glanced at the maid beside him. Not yet, but it's not a big problem. Following her line of sight, Kurosawa Hikari saw a Kaisayaka standing guard on the side. He was reminded, but not very worried. Although he had to overcome many difficulties to go on a date with Mirai, he would find a way. At 11 o'clock in the evening, Kurosawa Hikari returned home. The house was very quiet, with no lights. Xiaoyuki said she was going home for dinner and had left long ago. After taking a shower and changing into a short-sleeved pajamas, Kurosawa Hikaru sat on the bed and picked up his phone to read the messages. Brother Hikaru, I'm home. There will be grilled eggplant tonight. My mother made it so delicious. Brother Hikaru, Miss Igarashi asked me to hurry up and practice more. The competition will start in 2 weeks. I have to get up early tomorrow to practice dancing. I'm going to sleep first. Good night. There is only one person who would call Brother Hikaru, and that is Xiaoyuki. Obviously, she can't be idle every day. Senior, foot bathing is really useful. I feel like I've been on the ice longer. It's so lively today. People are discussing midnight on the streets. Foot bathing is so comfortable. With photos. Senior, I woke up a little early today and skated a little long. I'm going to sleep first. Good night. The person who called Senior was Miki Shiraha, and she sent a lot of messages. As for Igarashi Runa and Ninomiya Chizuru, they didn't send him messages today, probably because they were very busy. We're going to the beach on Sunday, and we're free on Friday and Saturday. How should we arrange it? Looking at the ceiling, Kurosawa Hikari was also calculating the time. Just as Mirai said at the beginning, it would be better to wait until the piano recital is over before going out, because after finishing this matter, it's like taking a heavy burden off your shoulders, and the whole person feels much more relaxed. Chizuru, are you asleep? After thinking about it, Kurosawa Hikari sent a message to Ninomiya Chizuru. Unlike others, Chizuru's personality is more arrogant and she won't take the initiative to send messages. However, she doesn't send messages, which doesn't mean she doesn't miss you. What is certain is that she really wants to meet him, even if it's just to talk. Not yet, what's wrong? Soon, the message got a reply. Finding that she was still awake, Kurosawa Hikari did not continue to send messages, but instead sent a request for a video call. This application was quickly approved, and Ninomiya Chizuru's face appeared on the phone. She is so beautiful and photogenic. Even without filters and angles, she is still very beautiful. What's wrong? As the call was connected, Ninomiya Chizuru adjusted her sitting posture, fiddled with her hair, and asked calmly. Nothing, I just missed you and wanted to talk to you. Kurosawa Hikaru looked at her little expression change, a little funny, and liked her very much. In fact, people's likes can usually be divided into 3 types. The first is biological attraction, that is, being attracted by the other person's appearance, figure, and charm, such as young and beautiful girls, who can always make men interested. The second is social attraction, that is, being attracted by the other person's identity, profession, talent, and status, such as nurses, doctors, teachers, flight attendants, and other special professions, which have special charm. The third is spiritual attraction, that is, having common interests, ideals, or common experiences with the other person, and being deeply attracted. These 3 kinds of likes can be superimposed, and there is no distinction between high and low, because love is very complicated and cannot be defined. If the other person can make you have 3 kinds of likes, it means that her charm is completely in your sight. Even if she has some shortcomings, you won't mind, but will find them cute. Just like now, Kurosawa Hikaru knows that Chizuru is very happy about her proactive contact, but she pretends to be very calm, and her arrogant little personality is very cute. Is that just what you're talking about? Faced with such a straightforward feeling of longing, Ninomiya Chizuru paused for a few seconds, stared at Kurosawa Hikaru with a pair of blue eyes, and then asked for a long time. She wasn't disgusted by such cheesy words of love, and she was quite happy to hear them, but that alone wasn't enough. You know, Kurosawa rarely contacts her, although they just met last night. I still want to see you, can I go find you? Kurosawa shook his head and asked. Yes, but I'm very busy this week and I only have Saturday off. Ninomiya Chizuru nodded and explained his situation. Then I'll see you on Saturday. Kurosawa Hikaru heard her subtext. It was useless to go to her in the past 2 days. He would go to her on Saturday and said decisively. Faced with this situation, you must not ask can I go to you, but express your attitude. Because girls are all reserved, whether they are young or adults, they are all the same. When getting along with girls, you must have a good sense of scale and adopt a proactive and tough attitude. It's up to you. If you're free and don't have any plans, you can come to me. When Ninomiya Chizuru heard this, she was stunned for a moment, then raised her arm, pushed the hair on her face behind her ears, and said. She is a bit arrogant and obviously wants to see him, but she just refuses to admit it. After a brief chat, we agreed to go see her on Saturday. Because Chizuru still wanted to sleep, we ended the video call. Bayu, are you free tomorrow? After settling the matter, Kurosawa Hikaru thought for a while and sent another message to Miki Shiryu. Because she had already said good night and probably went to bed early, Kurosawa Hikaru was not in a hurry to see the reply. At this point, his schedule this week is pretty full. He will go on a date with his schoolmate tomorrow, meet Kinhee the day after tomorrow, and elope with Mirai the day after tomorrow. It is foreseeable that Miki Bayu will probably be very surprised when he wakes up and sees his message. Taking his mobile phone, he sent good night to the 5 girls one by one, indicating that he was going to sleep. Kurosawa turned off the lights and lay down on the bed. Want to sleep on my quilt? Lying on his bed, Kurosawa Hikaru suddenly smelled a sweet fragrance. He opened his eyes and remembered what happened when he suddenly returned home in the afternoon. He knew that the smell he smelled was Sayuki's. It smelled very fragrant, but it was different from the rich feeling of perfume, with a light aftertaste. Although normally one would feel disgusted if one's own things smell like someone else's, but the scent of his girlfriend is different and very comfortable. Kurosawa Hikaru smiled when he thought of Yuki-chan hugging his quilt and loving it so much. What should I do tomorrow? Thinking about what he would do on his date with Miki Shiryu tomorrow, Kurosawa Hikaru fell into sleep without even realizing it. If possible, he hopes to trigger the date task tomorrow. Rewards are one thing, but the key is that the system can set task goals based on the woman's preferences and give him direction. When there is no date task, going out on a date with a girl and what to do is actually quite a waste of time. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 439. Tokyo's 23 wards are actually not many areas suitable for young people. Because Neon has long become a developed country, compared with keeping up with the development of the times, all fields have been developing steadily. Only Shibuya is known as the street of young people, keeping up with the trends of the times. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Kurosawa Hikaru walked out of the Shibuya station exit. Although his appearance is outstanding and he is somewhat famous, even a big star will be forgotten in the dust if he does not appear in people's sight for more than a week. The publicity of Kyoto has not reached the level of overwhelming. For example, posters are posted in the streets and alleys. His appearance only caused some girls to look sideways and turn their heads. Men like young beauties, and women also like young handsome men. After successfully arriving in Shibuya, Kurosawa Hikaru took out his phone and glanced at the information, then looked around, saw a flash of white under the street light not far away, and walked over. Under the street lamp, Miki Bayu, who has white hair like snow, is wearing an off-shoulder pure white dress, her calves under the long skirt, her skin is fair and soft, dad shoes, and little white socks. This style of dressing is pure, sweet and pleasant. The key is that she looks so beautiful. Although she is small in stature, she is more popular in Neon as a cute girl than a tall one. Kurosawa Hikaru walked forward step by step. Before he was completely close, Miki Bayu saw him, his eyes lit up, and he took the initiative to greet him. "Senior, good morning." Until they were face to face, Miki Bayu was holding a bag in one hand, and raised his free hand to wave hello gently. "Good morning, you arrived earlier than me again." Kurosawa Hikaru saw her proactive greeting and raised his hand in response. No matter what kind of relationship it is, love, friendship, family affection, it is best to go halfway and go to each other. I just arrived a little early, and my home is relatively close to Shibuya. Mikibayo smiled softly and didn't mind waiting at all. Let's talk as we walk. Traffic places like stations usually have the highest flow of people. Kurosawa noticed that their combination was eye-catching and suggested. Mikibayo nodded slightly and didn't ask where he was going. Is there somewhere you want to go? Walking side by side, moving forward as a group, Kurosawa Hikaru took the initiative to open up the topic. Dating tasks are not so easy to trigger, because if you want to create a beautiful memory, whether it is time, place, or event, there are clear requirements. Although he has a lot of dating experience, everyone's preferences are different. Skating, is there somewhere you want to go to play, senior? Speaking of his own preferences, Mikibayo had an answer in his mind without thinking, but he quickly suppressed it and asked instead. She doesn't have many hobbies, skating is the most important, and she will never get tired of it even if she plays it for a lifetime. As long as it has something to do with skating, she will be happy, but she must also take into account the feelings of her seniors. That's too much. Kurosawa Hikaru heard her words of breaking in time, but did not point out, but said. When two people act together, if they are both taking care of each other's feelings, there will be many restrictions on their actions. One person must make the decision. There is no doubt that Bayu wants to go to the skating rink. He probably had a lot of fun skating with him last time and wants to continue. Thinking about it carefully, she said last time that she wanted to do it again. However, the day was very long, and Bayu did not bring a satchel this time, but only a small handbag. In terms of size, it could only be used to hold mobile phones, cosmetics for touch UPS and the like. Obviously, she didn't bring her skates and had no intention of going to the skating rink when she went out. For example, Mikibayo is looking forward to his answer. In fact, no matter where the senior wants to go, she is willing to go and see it. Courtesy reciprocates, the senior last time accompanied her to the skating rink, this time it was her turn to accompany the senior. Guess it? Kurosawa Hikaru didn't answer directly, but kept it secret. You guessed it, although this kind of statement is quite playful, it has to be criticized. If it's someone who likes you, they will naturally cooperate in guessing, but if someone is not interested in you, they will be very impatient. See a movie. Mikibayo has almost no dating experience, but she knows a lot about everyone's dating situations. The reason why movie theaters are the most popular places for dates is because they have one factor: even if you go there in broad daylight, the lights will dim when the movie starts. When a man and a woman go to the movies, most of the time the drunkards are not interested in drinking, but because the two of them sit for a long time in dim lighting and cannot make loud noises, whispering to each other. If the content of the movie is exciting, it will be an unexpected bonus. How did you guess that? Kurosawa Hikaru was shocked when he heard this and looked at her in astonishment. Did you guess it right? Seeing his reaction, Mikibayo was stunned for a moment, and then felt happy. In fact, she just made a random guess, because she didn't know the senior very well. Guessed it right. Kurosawa nodded. In fact, the part where you guess can elicit girls' expectations. Without the help of the system, if you want to find out a girl's interests and hobbies, it is often better to use some tricky methods. Watching movies is indeed one of the projects he is considering. Maybe couples all over the world go to the movies together, it seems quite tacky. But in fact, I think this kind of dating activity is vulgar and undesirable. Why are couples all over the world watching movies? Because it is useful enough. When the relationship is not warm enough, watching movies is very suitable for promoting feelings. A good choice of movies can also increase the common topics between two people. Senior, do you like watching movies? It feels good to guess correctly. Mickey Bayu was a little happy and said curiously. Like it? In response to this question, Kurosawa Hikaru turned to look at her beautiful face and smiled. He is not interested in watching movies, but he still likes them when he goes to watch movies with Miki Shiryu. Because he and Miki Baiha have very few stories and few shared experiences, and there are still many things they have not done, one of which is watching movies. For some reason, Miki Bayu always felt that he meant something else when he said he liked her. When he said he liked me, did he mean he liked me? As this thought emerged in her mind, she raised her eyes and suddenly met a pair of gentle and affectionate eyes. Her heart trembled, and she started to bump into each other. Let's go to the cinema. Seeing a faint blush on her snow-white face, Kurosawa was so cute that he smiled. This girl is really good at attack and defense, and she will be shy if she flirts with her casually. Miki Bayu nodded obediently and followed his footsteps. Along the way, Kurosawa Hikaru also looked at her sideways, observing her details. Today, she did not wear flesh-colored stockings, but a pair of small white socks. Compared with usual times, there are not many details changes in hairstyle and clothes. Maybe this is the benefit of natural beauty. You don't need to dress deliberately, you can just wear it casually and you will look absolutely beautiful. There were several movie theaters in Shibuya, so they found the one closest to them and went in. There are very few private cinemas in Nihon, because Nihon attaches great importance to copyright and is extremely strict. Private cinemas are not allowed. Even if there are, they are in relatively remote places. When you walk into the theater, there are posters everywhere. The area is not very large, but the cultural atmosphere of the movie is very strong. After a general glance around, Kurosawa Hikaru and Miki Shiraba quickly reached a consensus and selected a movie. 2 student tickets. Arriving at the front desk, Kurosawa Hikaru communicated with the young ticket seller, selected a movie and a seat, and said, "Okay, student tickets are 1,200 yen each. Please show your student ID cards." Although this customer looks very handsome, the conductor still maintains a professional attitude, but the smile is no longer businesslike, but sincere. Good. When Kurosawa Hikaru heard this, he took out his wallet and pulled out his student ID card. Maybe Nihon doesn't have such a thing as an ID card, but it's best to bring your ID with you when you go out to avoid a lot of trouble. Senior, let me pay this time. At the same time, Miki Bayu seized the opportunity and said hurriedly. Immediately, she placed the bag on the counter and started rummaging through it. Soon, she took out her student ID card and put it on the counter. Because of the height difference, Kurosawa Hikaru saw her student ID card and a photo at a glance. It's so beautiful. Although Nihon is not so strict about ID photos and can use beautiful photos, Miki Baiha's appearance is too good. Kurosawa Hikaru can say that her ID photo is definitely the most beautiful one he has ever seen. As for paying the bill, Kurosawa Hikaru didn't compete with her. After all, it didn't cost much. There were still many activities on today's date, so there was no need to rush. It is worth mentioning that even if Kurosawa Hikaru doesn't like to peek into other people's privacy, he still inevitably sees what's inside her bag. There is a lipstick, mobile phone data cable, and charger in her bag. In fact, when dating, if the other party brings a data cable and a charging cable, some people may think it is a hint, but it is nothing at all, because everyone's mobile phone model is different, and the power may be consumed too quickly and needs to be charged. Because of this kind of thing, it is actually very common behavior to think that the other person wants to spend the night outside. Kurosawa Hikaru naturally has no such idea. After all, this is their second date and they have a long time to come. The conductor took 2 student ID cards and glanced at the school name on them, and was immediately shocked. Because these 2 college student ID cards turned out to be from the University of Tokyo, Are these two people the top students of the University of Tokyo? Although she often sees various student ID cards, the student ID card of the University of Tokyo is relatively rare because it is the well-deserved #1 university in Nihon. How much is the total? Miki Bayu waited until she finished checking, handed back her student ID card, and asked again. 2 student tickets, a big bucket of popcorn, 2 cups of Coke, a total of 4,400 yen. There was a conductor who was shocked. Because the 2 guests were from Dongda University, their tone of voice was more respectful. Okay. When Miki Bayu heard this, he took out the money from his bag and started counting. As she reached into her bag and took out the money, something fell out and fell on the counter. It is very noticeable when something suddenly falls on an empty and neat countertop. It was a small red box with 3 numbers written on it, 001, and the words Akamoto, Jibo, 2-pack, etc. Seeing this thing, Kurosawa Hikaru was a little stunned. Akamoto, 001, is very common in all kinds of convenience stores. What is this thing? There are many aliases, such as blocking elves, human cub burp bag, Pampers death, and offspring death bag. As for its function, those who know it know it. Snap. Without waiting for Kurosawa Hikaru to react, a hand as fast as lightning slapped it up like hitting a mosquito. I saw Miki Bayu holding it down and stuffing the thing back into her bag. She lowered her head, her ears were red, and her little face was so red that it seemed to be dripping with blood. No way. Seeing Miki Bayu lowering her head like an ostrich, Kurosawa Hikaru looked sideways. Just now, he saw Bayu's bag with a data cable and a charger, and he didn't think much about it, because that was too common, but the appearance of Akamoto 001 really made people think more. Miki Bayu lowered his head, counted out 4,000 yuan and 4 coins, and handed them to the front desk silently. So embarrassing. So embarrassing. So embarrassing. How could it fall out? The senior seemed to have seen it. Would he think I was horny? So lustful? When I was with him, I only thought about that kind of thing. She bought this thing on the way to Shibuya. Considering that she didn't know what would happen on the date today, she wanted to be safe. But when she bought it, the look in the clerk's eyes made her extremely shy. She hurriedly stuffed it into her bag and ran away without putting it away. Please wait. The ticket seller was also well informed. Although she recognized what the thing was, she didn't point it out. After getting the money, she went to work as usual. Soon, she handed them a tray with a large bucket of popcorn and 2 cups of Coke, as well as 2 student tickets, and pointed out the ticket gate for them. Kurosawa Hikari took the things and walked with Miki Shiraha. Walking in front, Kurosawa Hikari found that Miki Shiraha didn't dare to walk side by side with him, but hid behind. So you believe in that urban legend? Noticing her embarrassment, Kurosawa Hikaru slowed down his pace and walked to her side, whispering. What? Sanmue Bayu, who lowered his head and wished he could find a hole to crawl into, was a little puzzled when he heard this serious statement. Putting condoms in your wallet can gather wealth and ward off evil. Kurosawa Hikaru said seriously. Nin does have this folk legend, putting condoms in your wallet can gather wealth and ward off evil, and there is also a saying that it increases your luck in love. Sanmue Bayu was stunned when she heard this, and was a little confused. Although she knew that there were many folk legends in Nin, after all, there were 8 million gods and a lot of strange legends, she didn't know much. She was a girl from the Department of Literature, and she liked to read all kinds of literary works, but not this kind of modern legend. Don't you know? Seeing that she hadn't reacted yet, Kurosawa Hikaru asked again. I know. Sanmue Bayu came back to her senses, and although it was the first time she heard this legend, she still nodded. Compared to the perverted girl who was considered by the senior to be thinking only of that kind of thing, this statement is much better. Senior, do you believe this legend? Immediately, Mickey Bio found a way out and shifted the topic to him. I used to believe it, but later I didn't believe it anymore. Seeing her shyness fade away, Kurosawa Hikaru also followed the topic. Why? Because I did an experiment when I was 10 years old, but I didn't see the effect of gathering wealth. Do you know how I experimented? How did you experiment? It was almost New Year's Day, and I put this thing in my wallet to see the effect of gathering wealth. As a result, the New Year's money my mother gave me was still the same as in previous years, and there was no change at all. I didn't believe it at the time, and I put it in a whole year, but after waiting for another year, the New Year's money was still the same. Your experimental method is too weird. Seeing him talking about the past seriously, Mickey Bio was amused. She really didn't expect that the gentle and elegant senior would actually do such a thing. It was really surprising. While chatting and laughing, they passed the ticket check and walked into the cinema. Her reaction just now clearly showed that she didn't know about this urban legend. In other words, her purpose was not to gather wealth and ward off evil spirits. First, he asked Miki Shiraha to sit down, and Kurosawa Hikaru sat next to her, his mind a little erratic. But she still let it go. Does this mean that she is mentally prepared? Kurosawa Hikaru looked at her beautiful face and slender and petite figure with a sidelong glance, and his heartbeat accelerated a little. He took his relationship very seriously. Whether it was with Xiaoyuki, Chizuru, or now Shiraha, the purpose of dating was definitely not just to get a room. For example, go to karaoke with Xiaoyuki, go to the beach together, and surf together. Or go to the amusement park with Chizuru, ride a roller coaster, enter a haunted house, travel to Sketch, and play the piano. And go to the skating rink with Miki Shiraha, and play figure skating together. Because everyone has different interests and hobbies, every date is a very interesting experience. In addition, some exciting and blushing things that happen during a date are also surprising, and they make people feel excited when they think about it. Senior, is there something on my face? San Muabayu, who had already sat down, found that he was peeking at her, and her mind, which had finally relaxed, became tense again. Sure enough, did the senior still feel suspicious after seeing what he just saw? Yes, I have. Kurosawa Hikaru was not embarrassed when his peeping behavior was discovered, but nodded. Really? Where? Miki Bayu was stunned when she heard this. She just asked casually, but she didn't expect it to happen. Beauty. In this regard, Kurosawa Hikaru said slowly. What is that? Hearing this answer, Miki Bayu was stunned for a moment and was immediately embarrassed. Not long after, the lights in the theater dimmed and the movie started. The content of the movie is not important. The key is that the two people sit together and will not be separated easily until the end of the movie. While watching the movie, Hikaru Kurosawa's attention was not on the movie at all, but on peeking at the girl next to him. The distance between the two people was very close, and he smelled a very good smell, which was very comfortable. How could anyone focus on the movie when they are with the person they like? That would be too straight. In the darkness, both of them were thinking the same thing. There was no way they could watch the movie. Instead, they secretly looked at the people around them. A movie is usually less than 2 hours long. At 11 o'clock at noon, the movie ended and people walked out one after another. Look, his girlfriend is so beautiful. What a perfect couple. What a shame, he has a girlfriend. Yes, yes. It's so enviable. What are you envious of? That someone else's girlfriend is beautiful. No, I'm envious of them holding hands. When people leaving the venue saw a couple, they all looked back with envy. Are we a good match? Miki Bayu listened to the people's voices, her pretty face turned red, and she was a little shy. She looked at Kurosawa Hikaru beside her and felt extremely excited. Although she had heard countless compliments since she was a child, She had never been praised for being a good match. It's past 11 o'clock. Let's find a place to eat something first. What do you want to eat? Through a movie, he naturally held her hand, and Kurosawa was also concerned about her feelings. In fact, if a man and a woman go on a date to watch a movie, if they can't even hold hands after watching a movie, it's basically out of the question. I will follow the senior's arrangements. When he held his hand, Miki Bayo looked particularly well behaved. While watching a movie just now, the senior quietly held her hand in the dark, which made her feel very sweet to this day, and she felt that the air she breathed was sweet. Good. Seeing that she completely left the decision to him, Kurosawa Hikaru looked at her carefully and nodded. In fact, when girls are dating, they prefer to be led instead of giving advice. But he could see that Miki Bayo would be happy in anything as long as she was with him, so he didn't need to worry too much. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 440. A day is actually very long. If you do nothing, you will feel bored. But if you are dating, it is another matter. Whether you are a man or a woman, dating with the opposite sex you like is the most interesting thing. After lunch, Kurosawa Hikaru took Miki Shiraha to play the escape room. This is the experience he has accumulated from many dates. Even if there is no task, he has realized a truth. When dating a girl, there must be a special event to make it easier to leave memories. Just going to the movies together, although holding hands is also a good experience, it is not enough. Neon horror movies are famous in Asia, thanks to neon's cultural atmosphere. Shiraha, are you afraid of ghosts? When he came to a building, Kurosawa Hikaru found the location of the online guide, looked up at the building, and turned around to ask. Not afraid, I am afraid, ghosts are so scary. Miki Shiraha shook her head, but she soon regretted it. The escape room can actually be understood as a haunted house, but there are more themes, not all of them are scary. Although she had never played it before, she knew that boys and girls watched horror movies together. The purpose was to make girls feel scared and seek protection when facing danger. Go and try it. Kurosawa Hikaru saw her poor acting skills and shook his head and laughed. Bayo's personality is very special. She can see her true heart and has a strong ability of self-awareness. Such people should not be afraid of going to a haunted house, unless they really encounter a ghost. Judging from her reaction just now, she should be the type who watches horror movies and comments on the makeup and appearance of the person playing the ghost, and thinks about the background story. When escaping from the secret room, a small accident happened. The atmosphere of the scene is too strong, the pursuit of the NPC is very scary, and the design of the mechanism. Kurosawa Hikaru and Miki Bayo were forcibly separated during the decryption process. Separately, Kurosawa Hikaru tried his best to find her, and soon he cleared the level. The power brought to him by boxing, leg techniques, archery, and various skills gave him unparalleled confidence. He was not afraid of NPCs and decrypted them when he needed to. However, after he got through the secret room and walked out, Kurosawa Hikaru didn't see Miki Bayo. Because during the escape room, players are asked to put personal belongings, such as mobile phones, in lockers, and there is no way to contact them by phone. In desperation, he could only find the staff and explain that his companion was missing. Your companion may be hiding in the area between a 3 and a 5. Please don't worry. I will send someone to find him immediately. However, the staff did not find anyone after checking the surveillance. Only during the playback process, they found the last place where Miki Bayo appeared. Although the equipment of the escape room is very complete, with various surveillance to ensure the player's gaming experience, it has not been able to achieve full coverage, and there are some blind spots. I'll go with you. Discovering this situation, Kurosawa Hikaru naturally couldn't wait in place, and set off with the NPC. If he guessed correctly, Miki Bayo should have been scared and found a place to hide. If the NPC went to find her, it might cause her to not dare to speak and hide and refuse to come out. It has to be said that the efficiency of following the NPC is fast. There is no need to decrypt, and it arrived at the A3 area in a blink of an eye. This design is quite sinister. Returning to the place where he separated from Miki Bayo, Kurosawa Mitsuru glanced at the door next to him, feeling a little resentful. This door, seemingly a normal door, actually has a mechanism. If they are not holding hands or are completely close together, the mechanism will be activated in just 2 steps, automatically locking the door and forcibly dividing the group of players into 2 groups. Originally, he and Miki Bayo should have experienced the whole process happily, but they were forced to separate. This is for the sense of tension. According to the normal process, as long as the 2 groups of people act on their own routes, they can meet within 20 minutes. The NPC heard his complaint and smiled. He had no choice. This was what the higher UPS meant. In theory, this is a very good design, which is conducive to extending the player's playing time, and forced separation is an extremely terrifying and exciting experience. Let's go, continue looking for people. Kurosawa Mitsuru looked back at him, not blaming him. According to my work experience, the guest's companion should be hiding, and it happens to be hidden in the blind spot of the surveillance, just in the next corridor. If you can, call her name later, and I will not make any noise. The NPC nodded, led the way and walked in front, explaining. The NPC was wearing an isolation suit, and the shoes on his feet would make obvious noises when walking. As an NPC, if he made a sound, he might scare the player. Kurosawa Hikaru followed his footsteps and walked in the corridor with scarlet lights and bloody handprints on the wall. The environment in the corridor was very quiet, gloomy, and terrifying. In a blink of an eye, he arrived at the next corridor. The layout of the environment did not change at all, just like a maze, with very little difference. This is a visual hint, which can also be understood as a ghost wall. Once a person cannot distinguish the road, he will easily fall into fear. Seeing the scenery of this corridor, Kurosawa Hikaru immediately understood. Bayu is not afraid of ghosts, but she is a road idiot. She knows that she will get lost, so when she encounters this situation, she is probably scared. Based on past experience, Bayu would use his mobile phone to open the navigation once he got lost. However, in the escape room, the official asked him to put his mobile phone away and put it in the locker. I don't have a mobile phone, I'm a road addict, and I have to face the maze alone. The best way is to wait where I am. However, the NPC in the escape room would not allow her to stay where she was, and would make pursuing sounds and movements, which forced her to take action. After figuring out the reason for Miki Bayo's disappearance, Kurosawa Hikaru wanted to speak. But before he could speak, he vaguely heard some movement due to his keen hearing. The source of the sound was not far away, in a collapsed and chaotic area. There were a lot of clutter there, messy. Among them was a box with bloody fingerprints on the surface. This box was quite small. Under normal circumstances, it would be impossible to hide people in such a box. Looking at the box, Kurosawa Hikaru felt happy, and then continued walking without making a sound. It's difficult. She's only less than 1.5 meters tall. How can she be found if she's so small and hidden? Soon, following the NPC to the debris pile, Kurosawa Hikaru said worriedly. As soon as he finished speaking, a sentence rang out from the box at his feet. I'm 1.6 meters tall. The next moment, the lid of the box was pushed open by a hand. This sudden movement made the NPC tremble in fright. Because this small box is used for setting the scene and has never been used for players to hide. Found it? Kurosawa Hikaru had already heard her slight movement, saw that the box had indeed moved, and walked forward. I saw Mickey Bio curled up and squatting inside with her legs crossed. Such a small box, with her amazing softness, actually contained her inside. Senior, I'm really 1.6 meters tall, not less than 1.5 meters tall. Mickey Bio got out of the box, stood up, and said seriously. Although she is not tall, she is not short among girls. As a figure skater, she is very satisfied with her height. Because there is no height requirement for figure skating, if you are too tall, the weight of your body will inevitably increase, which will make it more difficult to perform some difficult movements, and the impact force on your knees will be higher with each jump. I know, I just want to tease you and make a joke with you. Kurosawa Hikaru saw her standing up and showing no signs of discomfort, so he nodded reassuringly. Her expression was normal. It seemed that this girl was not afraid of ghosts or NPCs. She was just worried that she would get lost and get separated, so she would wait for him to find her. Come to think of it, if he had shouted just now, Mickey Bio would have come out. As for the NPC's voice, she will definitely not respond. Senior, why are you with the NPC? At the same time, Mickey Bio also discovered the NPC beside him and couldn't help being surprised. Because I have cleared customs but didn't see you outside, so I had to ask the staff to take me to find someone. Speaking of this matter, Kurosawa Hikaru was a little helpless. Originally, he thought that a lot of interesting things would happen if he and Mickey Bio broke into the horror chamber together, but it turned out that the horror theme they chose had a forced separation. After settling this matter, they followed the NPC and left the scene. The billing method for escape rooms is different from that of haunted houses in amusement parks. Haunted houses charge tickets, but escape rooms are timed, such as 1,000 yen for 10 minutes, which is very expensive. The surveillance cameras can't find you. It seems you're pretty good at hide and seek. Riding the elevator downstairs, Kurosawa Hikaru looked at Miki Shiraha next to him and couldn't help but sigh. This girl has thin arms and legs, and is extremely soft. She can get into such a small box, and even hide in the blind spot of the surveillance without knowing it. It's normal to think about it. The areas responsible for surveillance are mainly corners and player hiding areas. Who would have thought that she could be so outrageous and be able to get into such a small box? Those are not normal hiding places. No, I rarely play this. Mickey Bio faced his appraising gaze, feeling a little proud because he was staring at her, but she also lowered her head in embarrassment. Senior, where are we going now? Walking on the streets of Shibuya again, Mickey Bio looked at the dazzling array of shops and looked forward to where he would go next. Where do you usually buy skates? Kurosawa Hikaru thought for a while and asked. Senior, you don't have to accompany me where I want to go. Mickey Bio heard about skating and shook his head. I want to buy a pair of skates, but I can't wear rented shoes all the time. I want you to accompany me to choose a pair. Kurosawa Hikaru knew that she had misunderstood and explained. Okay. After hearing this legitimate reason, Mickey Bio immediately became energetic. Let's go. Seeing that she was happy, Kurosawa nodded with satisfaction. No matter how interesting other things are, for this schoolgirl, the thing that interests her the most is everything related to skating. Not long after, Kurosawa Hikaru followed Miki Shiraha to the store she usually frequented. Miss Miki, welcome. What do you need to buy today? The clerks in this store will recognize Mickey Bio when they see her and greet her warmly. Ms. Akasaka, I would like to buy a pair of men's skates. Mickey Bio has a very familiar relationship with the store clerk. Although custom-made skates are best, universal models are also very nice and practical. Boyfriend. The female clerk named Akasaka glanced at Kurosawa Hikaru and was immediately shocked by his appearance. She leaned forward and asked softly. Uh-huh. Mickey Bio stole a glance at Kurosawa Hikaru beside him and nodded. Our relationship should be considered as boyfriend and girlfriend, right? He's so handsome. Is he also a figure skater? Why haven't I heard of him before? The female clerk was shocked and extremely curious when she received her affirmation. Mickey, who used to devote himself wholeheartedly to figure skating, is now old enough to fall in love. Having said that, she didn't feel sad, but was very optimistic about this relationship. Because this boyfriend looks very handsome and elegant. You can tell by his appearance that he is not a bad guy. He is a handsome man and a beautiful woman. He has just started learning, but he has learned skating before and has a very strong foundation. Seeing her excited reaction, Mickey Bio was very happy. Just like a boy who brings his super beautiful girlfriend to meet his brother, and when faced with everyone's reaction, his vanity will be satisfied, the girl feels the same way when she brings her handsome boyfriend to meet her friends. What's more, that feeling is even more satisfying, because neon beauties are common, but handsome men are rare. After all, neon girls learn to put on makeup since elementary school, and many girls regard makeup as a kind of etiquette. In comparison, most boys are slovenly, barbershops are expensive, and handsome guys are really rare. I'm Hikaru Kurosawa. It's our first time meeting you. Please take care of me. Feeling that the tone of Mickey Baiha's words was a little higher, and he was obviously very happy, Kurosawa Hikaru also opened his mouth at the right time, stretched out his hand and spoke enthusiastically. I am Akasaka Shiho, please take care of me. When Akasaka Shiho saw him extending his hand, he felt flattered and immediately shook hands with him. Maybe because she has a lot of experience as a store clerk and is used to meeting all kinds of people, she has an intuition that the identity of player Miki's boyfriend is definitely not simple. Because a person's temperament and conversation can express many things. After a simple greeting, Akasaka Shiho led them into the store and towards the men's skates area. As he walked, he asked, "What kind of skate shoes do you want to choose? Do you have a favorite brand? Ask her opinion. She knows more about figure skating. Let her help me choose." Kurosawa Hikaru glanced at Miki Shireo beside him and handed her the responsibility. The night was getting late, and after dinner, at around 8 o'clock, Kurosawa Hikaru sent Miki Shireo on his way home. He still adheres to the previous dating principles. When the date ends, it must not be in public places such as subway stations or trams. I had so much fun today. Walking hand in hand, Mickey Bio looked at the familiar road home and was in a good mood. Although every time she goes to the skating rink, she always has a full experience and is never disappointed, but the same goes for dating Kurosawa Senpai. After today's date, she has completely confirmed it. Even if her senior doesn't go to the skating rink with her, she will still be happy. What she likes is not the senior who goes to the skating rink with her, she likes the senior. Yes. Kurosawa held the bag in one hand and held her hand with the other. Seeing her satisfied look, he felt a sense of accomplishment. Even without the guidance of the mission, Mickey Bio was still very satisfied with dating him. For him, this was like his self-worth being recognized. Today's date is very simple, there are no special arrangements, it's like something ordinary couples would do. After that, the two of them didn't speak anymore, they just walked slowly hand in hand. The surroundings were not quiet, there were many pedestrians, but the feeling of holding hands made them feel each other's presence very clearly. How should I say goodbye tonight? Kurosawa Hikaru looked at the surrounding environment, and then glanced at Miki Shiraya next to him. Maybe it's because of the height difference, maybe she's too thin, or maybe her face looks a bit childish. Although she's about the same height as Yuki Ichino's, Shiraya looks very small, which makes people feel relaxed. It feels like you can hold it up. In fact, the process of dating is not particularly important, the key is the beginning and the end. The strongest impression on a date depends on physical contact or progress in the relationship. For example, the date on X, month, X, year X, the first time holding hands, kissing, hugging, etc., should be done step by step. However, even if Kurosawa Hikaru knows how to do it, what to do is a question worth pondering. In the morning, he saw Miki Baiha buying Akamoto 001. Although this incident, he could understand that Baiyu was mentally prepared to stay in a room with him for the night. But maybe due to the influence of the appointment task, he attaches great importance to reasons. For example, at the beach, he can use the excuse of applying sunscreen to help little Yuki apply it well. For example, in the dojo, he can use the reason that he doesn't know how to tie a belt to ask the future to tie it for him. In the current situation, if he suddenly said that he wanted to rent a house, it would be too cheap for him to think about that kind of thing. Reasons are important for both men and women. Boys don't want to be seen as too impatient, and girls don't want to be seen as too casual, so there must be a suitable reason. To be honest, he didn't know what he wanted to achieve in this date. They held hands and kissed last time, so what should he do this time? If he really said that he didn't want to do that kind of thing with Miki Baiyu, that was impossible. With such a beautiful girlfriend, any normal man would want to do it, but he felt that the time was not right yet. At this time, Miki Baiyu spoke first. "Senior, I will go home and soak my feet later. Actually, I don't know what temperature is suitable, can you help me check it?" Kurosawa Hikaru glanced at her and found that she was a little shy and embarrassed. Obviously, she mustered up the courage to invite him. This reason is actually quite bad, because the temperature of soaking feet varies from person to person. As long as you don't get burned, it's fine. This statement is almost as clear as asking if you want to sit at my house for a while. Okay, you've been walking all day, maybe your knees are uncomfortable, I'll take a look at it for you. I'm a professional at massage. Realizing this, Kurosawa Hikaru nodded without hesitation. His girlfriend had the courage to invite him. If he didn't know what was going on, he would be too unromantic. It was obvious that Miki Baiyu wanted to stay with him for a while longer, and so did he. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 442. If I go to your house at this time, will I meet your parents? Taking the elevator all the way up, Kurosawa Hikaru suddenly thought of something and couldn't help but ask. Visiting a girlfriend's house is an invitation that many boys cannot refuse. However, this is not entirely a good thing, because it would be embarrassing to think about meeting the parents. Unlike boys' parents, most of whom are happy when their sons bring girlfriends home, it is difficult for girls' parents to have a good reaction when their daughters bring boyfriends home. After all, there is a big difference between the two. In the former, the son has grown up and will finally be able to serve cabbage, while in the latter, the daughter has grown up and is still being treated by pigs. My parents are in Hokkaido, not in Tokyo. Miki Baiyu was holding a small bag, standing with his legs together, shaking his head slightly. Do you live alone? Kurosawa Hikaru could only read one meaning between the lines of her words. Uh-huh. Miki Baiyu raised his hand and stroked his hair, lowering his head, a little nervous. After receiving this affirmative answer, Kurosawa Hikaru didn't know whether to be happy or how to react. From this point of view, she, like him, went to the capital to go to school. It is a very common situation to leave your hometown to go to college. In contrast, before college, you usually choose a place not far from home. For a moment, the elevator felt a little cold. Not long after, the elevator arrived at the corresponding floor. Senior, do you live with your parents? Walking out of the elevator together, Miki Baiyu continued the topic just now. They are in their hometown. I came to Tokyo to go to school alone. Senior's hometown seems to be in Shizuoka. How do you know where my hometown is? Kurosawa Hikaru looked sideways. His hometown was not a secret, but he had never mentioned it. In fact, he still had a doubt that he could not solve, how Mickey Bio found his home before. Because the senior is very popular in the first grade, I heard what others said. Mickey Bio faced his gaze, suddenly a little nervous, and explained. This was not something she found out specifically or asked someone about. It was indeed something she heard from someone inadvertently. Unlike when boys get together, the topics range from astronomical geography to international situations. When girls get together, 90% of the topics revolve around men. Beauty comes from distance, and many students in the literature department have admiration and affection for Kurosawa-senpai. You were also very popular in the second grade. Seeing her panic, Kurosawa didn't ask any further questions and smiled. Although she didn't know what method she used to find her home, his address was not a secret place. Because when she came to visit him, he had already become famous in the National College Archery competition. Perhaps his real name is not on the same level as 0 Hour's phenomenal influence, but with a little fame, it's not surprising that someone knows his address. Have you heard anything about me from others, senior? During the conversation, Mickey Bio stopped in front of a door and asked curiously while taking the key from his bag. Yes, I have. Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help feeling a little nervous when he saw her actions. Although it was not the first time for him to go to a girl's house, for example, he had been to Chizuru-san and Runa-san's houses. But the Akamoto 001 he saw this morning had a strong impact on his young mind, and it was hard to forget. Maybe he wasn't going to the hotel now, but following Mickey Bio home, but he felt like he was being taken by a girl to check out a hotel room. This was different from the first time he met Xiaoyuki and went to a hotel to book a room, because he knew very well at the time that it was just an act. What did you hear? Mickey Bio took out the key and opened the door. Do you still remember when we first met? I was surprised why you didn't recognize me. When asked about this, Kurosawa paused for a few seconds and then touched his nose. Remember? Recalling the first encounter, Mickey Bio raised the corners of his mouth. The first few meetings with her seniors were all very fond memories for her. This is not because I claim to be famous, but because a friend of mine told me that Mickey, a junior from the literature department, wanted to ask me to hang out and said that you liked me. So after I met you, I found that you were interested in me. I didn't have any impression, so I thought it was strange. But after I met you and saw your reaction, I realized that there was no such thing and it was all fake. He was unable to explain this at first, but now that he has the opportunity, Kurosawa Hikaru is not afraid to talk about it. After all, this is a fact, and it was not his fault, it was his friend's fault. Although there is no such thing, the fact that I like the senior is not a lie. Mickey Bio didn't pay much attention to other people's rumors. He just opened the door and looked back with a smile. Oh. Even though Kurosawa Hikaru was used to seeing beautiful women, he still felt a little excited when he looked back and smiled like this. Because her white hair is like the hair of a fairy, delicate, soft and dense, swinging in the air, and filled with fragrance. The key is her direct attack. It feels very happy to be told by a beautiful girl that she likes her. Senior, please come in. Excuse me. Kurosawa Hikaru walked into the room first and said something out of politeness. There's no one else at home, so there's no need to be so reserved. Mickey Bio closed the door at this time and turned around to come to him. Good. Kurosawa Hikaru is actually not strict, but just based on the various etiquette of Neon. Immediately afterwards, they took off their shoes, put on slippers without taking off their socks, and stepped onto the corridor to the living room. Please sit down for a moment. When he came to the living room, Mickey Bio invited him to sit down in front of the sofa, then turned and walked away. Kurosawa Hikaru didn't care about this, he just sat on the sofa and looked at the home. This apartment is quite big, even bigger than the apartment he rented. It is estimated to have 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen, and a living room. Unlike many people who come to Tokyo and can only live in 1 bedroom. There is nothing special about the overall decoration, it is similar to a common apartment, but there are some things that are decorated in a personal style. For example, there is a vertical shoe cabinet with several pairs of figure skates placed on it, ranging in size from small to large. They are obviously the shoes Miki Shiraha has worn since she was a child, but she did not throw them away, but collected them. There are some posters on the wall and many photo frames, all of which are photos of Miki Bayu wearing costume before. Some are cute and some are beautiful. The poster on one wall seems to be able to see her growth trajectory. After a while, Miki Bayu re-entered the living room, holding a small tray with 2 glasses of ice water on it, as well as some biscuits and fruits. When guests come to visit, tea should be prepared first no matter what. If you are a very close friend and are very familiar with the environment of your home and can treat it as your own home. If you want to drink water, you will pour it yourself. If you are hungry, you will find something to eat by yourself. That is another matter. Did you arrange these? Seeing her running to get water, Kurosawa Hikaru was not surprised, but after meeting her eyes, he asked curiously. My parents arranged it, I wanted to tear it down, but he wouldn't allow it. Miki Bayu shook his head and walked forward a little helplessly. This apartment was not rented, but bought. After all, she had to participate in competitions and needed to travel around. Why tear it down? Kurosawa Hikaru was just looking for a random topic, but when he heard this reaction, he was a little confused. Because I can't go back. Miki Bayu put the tray on the table and looked back at the poster on the wall, feeling a little sad. That used to be her honor, but now, even if she tries her best to return to the ice, she can no longer return to the front line due to a leg injury. Bayu, come here for a moment. Seeing the look of disappointment on her face, Kurosawa Hikaru didn't want to make her unhappy, so he thought about it and said. What's wrong? Hearing this, Miki Bayu was a little confused, but still walked over. When she came closer, Kurosawa Hikaru stretched out his hands and lifted her up like a doll, and placed her on his lap to sit sideways. This sudden leap into the air, even though Miki Bayu had been practicing figure skating since childhood and was already used to all kinds of jumps, he couldn't help but be surprised when he was not mentally prepared. Senior, you are so strong. When she came back to her senses, she found herself sitting sideways on his lap. She was a little surprised but also felt shy. You are too light. Kurosawa responded, raising his right arm and placing it on her knee. This is a fact. He feels that Miki Shiraba weighs about 80 pounds at most. No wonder he looks like he will fall over if blown by the wind, but such a body shape is even more light and elegant on the skating rink. Her beautiful legs are slender and graceful, which are the lines she has learned from dancing. Her skin is as white as jade, not the unhealthy kind of paleness, just like mutton fat jade. It is very white and greasy under the light, and it is very attractive. This sudden movement made Miki Bayu's delicate body tense up and she couldn't help but squirm a little. Although they are in a relationship, this posture and actions make people blush. What did you mean when you said you couldn't go back? Kurosawa Hikaru gently touched her knee and asked without thinking that he was being a hooligan. In fact, he knew very well that the Miki Bayu he had known so far was in a low period, like a pearl covered in dust. She is very sensitive and even has low self-esteem. What's more, she feels that the person she used to be and the person she is now are not the same person. Even though she still loves figure skating unchanged, she can't shine like she did in the previous competition videos. On the competition field, I originally thought that if I worked hard enough, I could compete again. But this is not the case. Even if I have been recovering from my injury for several years, I cannot conduct very intense training because of my old illness. Now I can't even find a way to compete. I can't even return to the level I was at before I retired, and the players my age have completely left me behind. When it came to skating and regrets, Mickey Bio looked down and saw him massaging his injured knee. His shyness was washed away, replaced by an unforgettable helplessness and loss. The days when she was ahead of all her peers, even skaters from powerful skating countries, are over. She doesn't even have the qualifications to work hard, even though she likes to go to the skating rink every day. That's not the case for athletes who are active on the front line. There will be a figure skating competition soon. It is a small competition, but even if it is a small competition, she does not even have confidence. Do you want to go back? Kurosawa Hikaru saw her hanging her head and looking extremely lonely. After thinking deeply, he asked.